Meet young Soo-hyuk, the one man capable of single-handedly toppling an empire. Not only that, he unified the entire continent of Juwon with martial arts so devastating that he was revered as a god. He had it all: wealth, glory, and the most powerful armies in the world kneeling at his feet. But he had grown wary of it all. So, Soo-hyuk decided to abandon his throne and return to Earth, the world of his birth, from which he had been stolen long ago. To do so, he enlisted the help of a dark sorcerer to perform a spatial teleportation spell. The old man asked why someone at the pinnacle of power would want to return to the life of a common man. Soo-hyuk's answer was simple: he missed his family. The sorcerer activated a magic orb and began the ritual. Soo-hyuk had waited for this moment for so long, and at last, he was going home. The light faded. The first thing Soo-hyuk heard was the whirring of machinery. He opened his eyes, saw the Korean characters on a calendar, and breathed a silent prayer of thanks that the spell had worked. When he tried to sit up, his body screamed in agony, as if he'd been hit by a truck. A glance in the mirror revealed the dark sorcerer hadn't kept his word. He had sent him back to the wrong point in time. Soo-hyuk immediately channeled his esoteric energy, forcing it through the battered vessel he was trapped in. Within minutes, he felt significantly better, and some color returned to his face. He opened his system interface and froze. His rank had plummeted from sis to a mere at. Rage boiled within him for being sent to the wrong time. A moment later, nurses appeared at the door. When Soo-hyuk called out to them, they recoiled in shock, as if they'd just seen a ghost. A doctor rushed in, ran a series of tests, and confirmed that he was stable. They were all on edge, and for good reason. He had been in a coma for 5 years. Soo-hyuk couldn't believe it. The bald old man hadn't just missed the mark. He'd sent him 5 years into the future. He stood there, stunned into silence. The doctor left, leaving him paralyzed by the revelation. But then, the door opened again. It was his younger sister, Soo-hyuk. She stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face, unable to believe her brother was finally away. Soo-hyuk reassured his sister that everything was fine. Soo-hyuk began to tell him about a collision gate that had appeared 5 years ago. It had created a colossal sinkhole in the middle of the city, destroying everything around it. Amid the chaos, she had looked up to see countless other portals tear open across the sky. Warriors had poured out of them to fight back the monsters. Now, 5 years later, the world was a completely different place. Soo-hyuk realized he had a lot to catch up on, especially in a world where Earth now had people selling canned farts online. Changing the subject, he asked about her studies. Sura said she'd skipped college and gotten a job to earn money. Soo-hyuk knew she was lying, but he didn't call her on it. After hours of conversation, memories of the last time he saw his father flooded his mind. His father was a failed writer who had dreamed his whole life of being a poet but had never succeeded. He was always buried in his work and never had time to play with his son. As he grew older, Soo-hyuk began to speak his mind, eventually admitting he was no longer proud to call them father. One day, as he was walking down the street, the first gate had ripped open behind him and sucked him in. His father had tried to save him, but it was too late. That was the last he ever saw of him. Just then, his father walked into the room, dropping a bag he was carrying. In a choked voice, he apologized for not having enough money to give his son better treatment. Soo-hyuk broke down, crying like a child, telling him it wasn't his fault. Father and son embraced. 3 days later, Soo-hyuk was discharged. His family had moved to a place far shabbier than he remembered. 5 years of hospital bills had drained their finances dry. He made a vow he had to make money, and fast. In this new world of gates and dungeons, people with special abilities had become the new elite. The fastest way to get rich was to become a hunter. The problem was, his body was still 90 physically corrupted from the prolonged coma. But that wasn't going to stop him. He spent his days running up and down the stairs of his apartment building. The progress was agonizingly slow. Then he thought of his family, working themselves to the bone just to pay off his medical debt. At that moment, he channeled his inner energy, fortified his spirit, and began to run, relentless. No matter how much it hurt, he refused to give up. The sun dipped below the horizon, but he kept running, drawing whispers from the neighbors. After days of grueling effort, he was finally rewarded with 1 to both strength and stamina. Better yet, his level increased to 2, and with it, his body was fully restored. Now, he was ready to become a hunter. The next day, at the Hunter Association building, he walked straight to the registration office. An unimpressed clerk was interrupted when Soo-hyuk strode in and asked about the test. The man explained that all he had to do was place his hand on an orb. If it lit up, he was an awakened. The former emperor mused that countless people must come here with delusions of grandeur. but thanks to his system window, he knew for a fact he was one of the special ones. As expected, the orb blazed with brilliant light under his touch. The clerk congratulated him and said he'd get him registered immediately, handing him a form. Soo-hyuk thought the process was easier than expected. All it took was a confirmation of mana. He quickly filled out the form and handed it back, but something was wrong. The clerk stared at the paper, noting that Soo-hyuk was only level 1, yet he had 32 registered skills. The former emperor asked if there was a problem. The clerk said no, it was just completely absurd, and then snapped at him to stop messing around. Soo-hyuk thought the number was a bit high, but not that strange. It was disappointing they didn't believe him. He asked if he could display his system window publicly to prove it. The man agreed, curious to see what he would do. In response, Soo-hyuk instantly materialized his system window, leaving the clerk utterly speechless. There were so many skills that the man was stunned. He saw more than 10, and to make it even crazier, they were all a rank or higher. Soo-hyuk asked if he believed him now. The clerk immediately stammered an apology, promising to complete the registration as quickly as possible and saying he was sorry for not recognizing him sooner. The information was instantly relayed. A message was sent to Oshinwoo of the Hunter Association. One person asked if it was true, another confirmed they'd seen it with their own eyes. A red-haired man glanced at the form again, at the registrant's name. He thought to himself that it had been a long time since such an interesting rookie had appeared. Meanwhile, Soo-hyuk was jogging home through the city. The run from the association felt like it was going to make his heart explode. At least his stamina had increased by another point, and the system rewards were so generous he thought he might get diabetes. The former emperor had assumed he could start hunting right after registering, but that wasn't the case. He had to complete a basic training course first, a national measure to prevent inexperienced and clueless rookies from getting wiped out in dungeons. The course started at the end of each month. It was October 26th, only 5 days away. Soo-hyuk knew he didn't need the training, but it was an unavoidable formality. Until then, he planned to train relentlessly to get his body into even better shape. The former emperor needed to do this for his family, and for himself. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. There were more participants than he'd expected. He'd heard that some people avoided the course because it was genuinely dangerous, but that wasn't a problem for him. Suddenly, something caught his attention. He wondered what that flicker of energy was that had just passed him. Everyone was startled by a voice announcing a total of 48 participants. A blonde woman was observing them. With an imposing stance, she commanded them to look forward. The trainees were surprised to see she was an elf. One girl in particular was captivated, thinking she was impossibly beautiful. The moment Soo-hyuk sensed her presence, she was already there. He couldn't even track her movement. The former emperor believed it was more than just speed, perhaps a unique elven ability. A small smile touched his lips. This was going to be interesting. Something had caught the elf's attention. She spotted young Soo-hyuk in the crowd. The association's order was to keep an eye on him, and she knew that even though he was only level 1, he had faintly sensed her presence. Even among the most talented elves, she had never seen such a fascinating case. Meanwhile, the others were in awe. They had never seen an elf before and thought her beauty was otherworldly. She commanded silence and attention. Soo-hyuk focused, taking everything in. The elf explained she was here on a special request from Korea to serve as the lead instructor for the basic training course. She introduced herself as Shahar Klerat, a great warrior of Elfenheim. Since her full name was long, she told them to just call her Char. Soo-hyuk thought the name sounded like a puppy's, which was kind of cute. The young girl was still thinking about how beautiful the elf was, while the red-haired guy next to her just looked unfriendly. Char stated this was the first time an elf had participated in an Earth program, so she knew they'd have many questions, but she would only answer 3. Instantly, a hand shot up. It was the energetic girl from before. Soo-hyuk was surprised to see someone who looked like an elementary schooler here. Char said she liked the girl's energy and asked for her name. The girl introduced herself as Baeka Yeon, age 19. The other trainees were shocked that someone so young was in the training. Soo-hyuk felt a bit embarrassed for thinking she was just a kid. The elf asked for her question, but Yeon used her time to gush about how beautiful she was, more beautiful than any human or elf she'd ever seen, even if Char was the first. The compliment left the instructor flustered. The girl beamed. Char remarked it was an unusual way to ask a question, by offering praise instead. The elf stated she was the first sword of the great Kalira clan, and for that reason, she preferred to be seen as a warrior rather than just a woman. She then moved on to the next question. A few other trainees raised their hands, and she chose the intimidating-looking red-haired guy. Char noted he had raised his hand first, a choice that shocked the others. Looking at the boy, Soo-hyuk wondered if he was old-fashioned for thinking tattoos didn't make a good impression. The red-haired guy introduced himself as Jin Chang-hyuk and began by saying his question might be a bit strange. He wanted to know if criminals could participate in the training, as he had read that it depended on the instructor's criteria. Intrigued, Char asked what crime he had committed. A bit ashamed, Chang-hyuk admitted he had stolen a few things. Char, slightly surprised, said she didn't condone theft but promised it wouldn't be used to treat him unfairly here. She explained that in Elfenheim, lawbreakers had two choices. The first was to serve the relatives of their victims. The second was to fight on the battlefield in its defense. Her words captured everyone's attention. She told Chang-hyuk that the reason he was here was because he had chosen the second option. The elf said that in her homeland, they called it Langdare, which on earth was known as honorable repentance. Char told him that because of his sins, he must work harder than the others, but he must never forget his crimes. She told him to remember it and always act with honor, adding they could not be erased, but that didn't mean it couldn't be forgiven. Her words struck a chord with the red-haired young man. Chang-hyuk said he understood, and thanked her. She then called for the final question. Instantly, a hand shot up. Char was impressed by the speed and asked for the name. This time, it was young Soo-hyuk. With a slight smile, the elf revealed she'd been keeping an eye on him, making some wondered if they knew each other. The former emperor asked if she had a personal interest in him. Char asked if that was his final question, but Soo-hyuk said no, he had another. He asked if she was the only instructor for all the rookies here. Char said no, explaining that while she was the head instructor, she couldn't teach every subject herself. She said there would be ordinary humans assisting, and for combat training, she might personally lead a team. Soo-hyuk thought she was like a principal and a teacher all in one. Shahar concluded the kinda session. Suddenly, a man spoke up, declaring he didn't trust elves. Shahar just watched, curious. The man asked if he was wrong, arguing that since she wasn't human, she couldn't be trusted with their training. He claimed elves weren't proven rankers in the country like other instructors, and based on her looks, he doubted she even knew how to fight. Fakali, he said she seemed better suited for things very different from the battlefield. The elf was ready to prove him wrong. Shahar said if that's what he needed, then she would show him. Erupting in a verdant aura, she extended a hand toward him. The man was blinded by the light, and she effortlessly subdued everyone without breaking a sweat. They were terrified as they found themselves unable to move. As for the troublemaker, he couldn't even breathe. Shahar said that while proving oneself is important, she believed discipline was equally so. As a final warning, she said she would consider this a first-time mistake, but if it happened again, she would show no mercy. The man even wet himself like a frightened child. She found it a little amusing, but then something else caught her attention. A single person remained standing after her little display. The elf was impressed. She had used that technique to intimidate them, yet he remained standing, especially for a level 1. That's when she understood why she needed to keep an eye on him. And she believed that with his strength, he was already battle-ready. Meanwhile, Soo-hyuk wondered if he should just pretend to fall, as the situation had become a bit awkward. For Char, determination and skill were two different things. Instead of judging him, she decided to observe him more closely. The others were just relieved they could move again. With that, the elf concluded her introduction. She warned that during training, she didn't want to see any frowns on their faces. The rookies felt a little intimidated. Shahar turned to leave, saying she would see them in the next class. A new day dawned at the association building. The rookies were in a class on monsters, learning about a creature of the Delino type. Soo-hyuk couldn't focus, it had been too long since he'd last sat in a classroom. He just wanted to be in a real fight. His attitude didn't escape the head instructor. A powerful surge of energy shot towards him. The elf didn't let anything slip by. After being punished for dozing off for just a second, he wondered if he really shouldn't slack off in class. Still, Soo-hyuk had never been one for desk work. Soon, something else distracted him. Chang-hyuk was looking around suspiciously. Soo-hyuk thought he might have noticed something, but then realized he was just glancing at his own notes, and figured the red-haired guy was shyer than he looked. Another rookie was punished by Char. She then called out Soo-hyuk's name, telling him to pay attention. The former emperor thought she was too strict, believing the two of them wouldn't get along. Finally, the class ended. The teacher told them not to forget to review, as someone always managed to fail the written exam every year. Exhausted, the rookies agreed. The teacher, on the other hand, was thrilled, thinking he'd never seen such a focused class in all his years of teaching theory. Shahar was proud of her colleague's good work. As Soo-hyuk packed his things, someone caught his attention. Baek-yeon excitedly called him Appa. Again, he asked if she was in elementary school. The girl yelled that she was in high school and called him an old man. Then Soo-hyuk remembered she'd said she was 19. That was enough to provoke her again. Getting straight to the point, the former emperor asked what she wanted. Yeon mentioned that on the day Char used her power, he was the only one left standing, which surprised him that she had noticed. Chang-hyuk chimed in, admitting he'd seen it too, and thought it was amazing. The girl asked if his heart was made of steel and how he'd managed to endure it. Soo-hyuk simply said his heart was like anyone else and that it was probably just luck. The red-haired guy called him humble, and thought it was cool. Taking the opportunity, Soo-hyuk asked if that's why he had been observing the class, and the former thief apologized, saying he was just too impressed. But Soo-hyuk told him there was no need to apologize, thinking perhaps this guy wasn't as bad as he'd initially thought. Still full of energy, Yeon asked if he wanted to get lunch, joking that they were the question trio, but the former emperor declined, saying he had to go. The girl thought it was unfair that he used his skills to run away. Chang-hyuk thought he was quite charming, while the girl just thought the old man was a pain. The theory classes lasted for 30 days. That period couldn't be shortened or extended, as it was government policy. He just wanted to get out on the battlefield. But after hearing how many people failed the test, he was determined to study and be the best. The former emperor was even grateful to the elf for keeping him from slacking off. He'd heard from the instructors that their class had a high passing rate, but he knew that didn't mean everyone would pass. The exam wasn't that difficult, but you couldn't pass without studying. Yeon was terrified, saying there was a curse that if you failed once, you'd fail forever. She thought it was horrible, and asked her Appa if his soul was trembling with fear. Losing his patience, Soo-hyuk told her just not to fail and said he thought he understood why some people did. His words made the girl curious, so the former emperor pointed to what was happening. Some of the trainees were making plans for dinner and drinks. Someone even suggested they just cram for the exam at the last minute. That made the girl understand. Soo-hyuk said he was heading home and asked if that's why she had skipped the study group. Yeon thought her Appa was cold. The former emperor apologized, adding that spending time with his family was his top priority. This was the happiness he had fought to regain, and he had no intention of losing it again. A month passed, and soon it was the day of the written exam. Chang-hyuk mentioned the results would be out the same day, which made him really nervous. Yeon started making strange noises, and the red-haired guy asked why she had to be so loud when he was already anxious enough. The girl asked if being loud really made him feel that way. Looking awkward, he confirmed it, basically handing her ammunition. So she started teasing him by making continuous thumping sounds. Chang-hyuk told them to be quiet because the results were about to be posted, still bickering with the annoying girl. On the list, names appeared Yuri, Chang-hyuk, So. Yeon celebrated passing the written exam. The former emperor remarked that she always seemed to be fooling around, and asked how she managed to get such a high score. Grinning, the girl said a genius works better when no one is watching, though he thought that was ridiculous. Chang-hyuk agreed that she wasn't entirely wrong. Suddenly, something caught his eye. Chang-hyuk was crying, because he had passed, overjoyed that he could proudly tell his younger siblings. Their joy was contagious. Seeing this, Soo-hyuk realized that despite his initial impression, the red-haired guy was a good person. As they got closer, the former emperor learned his story. Chang-hyuk was the sole provider for his 3 younger brothers. His father had died from alcoholism. His mother, worn down by the abuse she endured at home, had chosen to leave and was never seen again. So, from his sophomore year of high school, he had taken care of his brothers. People said his experiences made him look like a thug. But Soo-hyuk knew how responsible and kind he was. He had only been arrested for stealing to feed his siblings and was released shortly after. He immediately started working to pay off his debts, proving he was a decent person. Soo-hyuk told him he'd been through a lot, and since he was more confident with manual labor now, he should try a little harder. Chang-hyuk thanked him for everything. A bit embarrassed, the former emperor asked what he had done, since Chang-hyuk had gotten this far on his own. Then the red-haired guy said that seeing him work hard had motivated him, and thanked him again. Soo-hyuk said flattery would get him nowhere. Chang-hyuk congratulated everyone, saying the trio was finally moving on to practical training. Chang-hyuk also thanked the girl, as she had worked hard every day to help him study after class. This surprised Soo-hyuk, realizing she hadn't been fooling around the whole time. The red-haired guy's phone started ringing. He told his younger brother he had passed, saying the hard part was over, and he would do his best. Listening in, Soo-hyuk thought he should bring him back down to earth, but he was sure he'd be fine, even if not everything was going to be easy. Out of 49 trainees, only 42 passed, and he heard the average pass rate was 50. He believed it was thanks to the huge impact of Instructor Char, whom he thought was an excellent teacher. Many had thought they truly couldn't pass. The elf was still keeping an eye on him. Soo-hyuk knew the real test would begin the following week with practical training, and that was going to be fun. And just like that, the week flew by. Char would be in charge of Team 8, and the trio was all there, ready for anything. Chang-hyuk said it was fascinating, and asked how they all ended up together. The elf explained that she had personally selected each team, thinking it better to group those with similar personalities. However, she said being on Team 8 was fate, as it was chosen randomly, and that it must be a blessing from the world tree. As excited as ever, Aeon said it truly was destiny. Char smiled faintly, and said it was indeed a great destiny, but that didn't mean she would go easy on them in training. That made the other two quite scared of what was to come. Meanwhile, Soo-hyuk wondered if she planned to make the discipline even stricter, because she understood they were about to enter a real battle. Char began by saying they would enter a gate, and asked the red-haired guide to explain what it was. In short, Chang-hyuk said it was an entrance to another world. The elf confirmed he was correct. However, not all gates were the same. She then asked trainee Soo-hyuk if he remembered last week's lecture. The former emperor started by saying gates were classified into two types, friendly and hostile. Among them, hostile gates were ranked from 1 to 13, with higher numbers being more dangerous. Char was pleased that the one who paid the least attention answered so well, and warned that for training, they would enter a rank 1 hostile gate. Aeon was excited to hear that. The elf asked what the girl knew about it. Aeon explained it had weaker monsters and lower density, so it was used as a training dungeon for candidates like them. Char asked if she was correct in saying it was very easy, and the girl agreed. With a terrifying look, the elf asked if that meant the monsters inside the dungeon couldn't kill people. The other two were speechless, so Soo-hyuk was the one to answer that they could. The elf said he was right, and that was why they admitted something like this. Then Char released her killing intent, an aura so powerful and dangerous that Soo-hyuk seemed to be the only one unfazed by it. The elf was shocked that he remained standing. Meanwhile, the former emperor wondered if he should at least pretend to be struggling a little. So he did. But the Team 8 instructor told him he didn't have to pretend. She said it might seem unfamiliar, but trainees like them had to get used to it. Char explained that if they couldn't adapt to the killing intent monsters radiated, they would be taken down much sooner and more easily than they thought. The three of them understood. After observing everything, Char said that apart from one person, they all seemed well prepared. She hadn't expected everyone to withstand her killing intent and asked if any of them had fought before. Soo-hyuk replied that he had experienced something similar, but Char said it would take more than just similar to endure it, and that he was definitely hiding something. She said she didn't mind a man with secrets, but it was good that he had the skills and endurance to handle it. After that, Team 8 headed out. Char said if they ran at full speed, they could reach their destination, the Mappa Station Gate, in an hour. Soo-hyuk asked if they were running there. The elf said she didn't know how to use public transport, and couldn't even drive. Besides, a run was a good warm-up for a battle. She told Soo-hyuk he was the team leader, and should guide his teammates, warning them that they would meet at Mappa Station in 1 hour. Char then sped off, leaving them behind. With no other choice, they had to run, but Aeon whined that she didn't want to. The boys left her behind anyway. Eventually, they reached the meeting point. Aeon and Chang-hyuk were exhausted, while the former emperor seemed completely unfazed. The elf was already there waiting, and said they had arrived faster than she expected with excellent results, just 10 minutes short. They were ready to enter the gate. Chang-hyuk commented that he thought he was going to die from exhaustion, and the girl was in a similar state. Soo-hyuk noticed that they had been extremely tense from the killing intent earlier, but now, thanks to the run, their muscles seemed more relaxed. Because of that, he wondered if it had all been intentional. If so, he thought the elf was even more skilled as an instructor, and her title as team leader was well-deserved. Char called her trainees. She warned that 10 minutes had passed. The elf asked if they were ready to enter, and excitedly, they all agreed. She then touched a key-like object. A secret door opened, and she announced for them to proceed immediately. Chang-hyuk and the girl looked a little suspicious. The rank 1 dungeon at Mappa Station was named Mojir, literally a world without borders. Through his studies, Soo-hyuk had learned something interesting. There were many dimensions in this world called Mojir, worlds abandoned by everyone, not even worthy of a name. Su Hyuk had heard that even in such places, intelligent civilizations that had once thrived long ago were sometimes discovered. Naturally, that made the former emperor think of something. He wondered if Mojir was a world created from the destruction of another. Su Hyuk believed that could be the case. To him, that would be very interesting. The place had hard ground and a red sky, not at all inviting. At the entrance, there was a portal, and Team 8 went through it. This was Mojir. After entering up a station with a base temperature below 2 degrees, though it looked like the beginning of hell, Jahar warned them to be careful as they didn't know when an enemy might appear. The monsters that lived there were called Nero. They were canine-like, about 3 meters tall, and as you would expect from such a creature, their main attack was biting. Their key feature was their ability to jump very high, and they usually moved in groups of 3 to 5. Although it was a level 1 dungeon, for newly awakened individuals, these creatures could be difficult to handle. To Su Hyuk, they didn't seem like much of a threat. The system window opened. Thanks to his preparation for the written exam, his stats had improved slightly overall, and most importantly, his awakening was very strong. A 20 boost effect was applied. Although he found it strange, this increase was surprisingly good. He also knew that compared to other awakened, his combat power was very high. If you added his understanding of martial arts and combat experience, his real strength could reach the level of first-class warriors. It had only taken him a month to regain all that power. There was no reason not to be confident in a rank 1 dungeon. Even while lost in thought, he noticed something. Su Hyuk told everyone to stop. He said they had company. Soon, the creatures were spotted heading their way. Shin Hyuk remarked there were 5 of them, and Char said that with his skills, he should be able to take them down without getting hurt, and told him not to be nervous, but to focus. She then told Team 8 to prepare for battle. The team leader told them not to rush, and to move only when the monsters were in their line of sight. But Su Hyuk found it boring, wanting to have some fun by taking them all down himself, and quickly. However, he followed the order. Besides, his teammates were unarmed. He had heard they would be provided with weapons during practical training if needed. He hadn't taken any, because he preferred to fight barehanded, and he wondered if the other 2 had any skills that didn't require weapons. In any case, the kind monsters were charging at full speed. After waiting for the right moment, Char declared it was time to fight. Suddenly, iron claws emerged from Chain Hyuk's hands. The red-haired guy charged straight at the beasts. Su Hyuk watched it all, impressed. Meanwhile, Ahyun played the role of a healer or support. Seeing this, he realized it was his turn to act. The former emperor was enveloped in his blue aura, using the wind shadow step. Su Hyuk was so fast he passed Chang Hyuk, who was at the front. He would use this training session to test his current condition. The first monster tried to attack. He quickly dodged the bite. Su Hyuk used the Iron Breaker Palm Shockwave, followed by the piercing attack Void Pierce. He finished off the first monster, and another appeared immediately. This one was about to bite him with its very sharp teeth. Su Hyuk jumped high, dodging the creature's attack. The former emperor took advantage of that to counter, unleashing a cyclone kick. The monster was easily defeated, slammed to the ground like an old road. His teammates were quite impressed. So was Char, who suspected he wasn't really just a trainee, and even wondered if he was human. In a short time, the former emperor had taken down 2, but the other creatures remained. The monster charged to attack. Su Hyuk turned to look at it. Then he moved from his position to face the beast head-on. The creature seemed surprised. Su Hyuk then used his Iron Fist, basic techniques that struck mercilessly with the Chainbreaker move. The beast was torn apart by the former emperor. Watching the fight, Char was shocked. She thought she should feel greedy, but this was actually driving her crazy. This human she wanted to take to Elvenheim. Su Hyuk wondered if all this was because he was relearning a martial art he had already mastered. Since his body was performing better than expected, he assumed the system's support was also playing a part. And he knew that at this rate, he could go to Joan and become one of the top contenders. But all he had left were the last 2 creatures. Su Hyuk was tempted to take them all down, but this was group combat training, and it would defeat the purpose if he did everything himself. For the former emperor, this was just a test, but his teammates needed real combat experience. The other 2 were completely shocked by Su Hyuk's attitude. Shin Hyuk quickly realized his teammate was giving them a chance. So, once again, he summoned his sharp claws. The red-haired guy drew the attention of the remaining monsters. He waited patiently for the creatures to come. His claws began to glow a fiery red. Suddenly, the creature moved quickly. Ahyun warned her Appa that the monster was attacking from behind. Its fangs were ready to bite him. His arm was swallowed by the massive mouth. Chang Hyuk wondered when the animal had moved. A few drops of red liquid fell to the ground, but the trainee was ready to deal with it. Yeon healed his wound with her skill. He was truly surprised by its effectiveness. Observing that, Soo Hyuk wanted to know if it was a healing skill, which was a good thing, but they were not safe yet. More beasts were approaching. These ones looked even more ferocious, not giving them a second to breathe. At least they had adapted, and it was time to clean up this mess. Team 8 now fought side by side. Outside the station, it was quiet. Finally, they were out. The girl and the red-haired guy were tired and wanted to go home. Soo Hyuk understood. After all, they had 6 battles in their first practical session. With a smile, the elf congratulated them on a job well done and said that Earth's Awakened were truly extraordinary, just as she had heard. The trio didn't understand why she was suddenly acting this way. Shahar explained that besides their stamina loss, their combat skills had improved, which was usually impossible. As always, the newbies didn't understand, but for a former emperor of an entire continent, it was nothing, and he thought it was just talent. However, he wondered if the system had helped it. Char said she believed they would all soon be able to participate in a real battle. And as an instructor, she felt proud. Finally, she told them they could go home. That made Chang Hyuk and Hyun very excited. However, she called Soo Hyuk back as she wanted to say something. The guy turned to see what she wanted. She said that from what she had seen, his fighting style didn't seem to rely on the system and was structured like a true martial art. Shahar said that if he was uncomfortable with the question, it was perfectly fine not to answer. But he said he really didn't mind. So, Soo Hyuk confirmed that he practiced martial arts. That was what the elf had expected, but she remembered that in recent years, the guy had been in a coma, and she wondered how he could have learned so quickly. To be honest, she didn't really believe it, but she knew the universe was vast and there were many things she couldn't comprehend. Soo Hyuk asked if something was wrong, and she said no, she just thought he was an incredible genius. The former emperor said he had heard that many times, but that was on the continent of Juan. Shahar said what was impressive was how he cared about his teammates getting experience too. With a slight smile, he said he was the team captain. The elf replied that just because someone is given a responsibility doesn't mean they can truly fulfill it as properly as he did. She called him a lovely man, which made the former emperor blush, trying to hide what the compliment did to him. He said the elf was exaggerating. Shahar was genuinely kind in what she said. The former emperor couldn't help but think about how impossibly beautiful the elf was. A beauty he had never seen, not even in Juan. But now was not the time to think about that. Besides, there was something more important. Today's hunt had certainly been satisfying, and he felt even more eager. After all, not long ago, he was considered the strongest martial artist in the history of the continent of Juan. He understood he was recovering quickly, and there was still that unquenchable thirst. But Soo Hyuk shouldn't rush. Even if he was a bit impatient, he knew he just needed to take it one step at a time. A melody played over a beautiful field. Soo Hyuk was carrying a strange creature. At this rate, he could earn 10 million won a month. They were on the 3rd day of combat training, and the team had cleared several rank 1 and rank 2 open dungeons on their first try. They also earned money from selling the byproducts. Monster bodies had some practical value, just like terrestrial animals. So, Soo Hyuk had saved a decent amount of money. But for now, he planned to keep it a secret from his family. It wasn't too late to tell them, when the time was right. Anyway, Hyun called her master, worried, and although it was strange, he responded. The girl said he looked very excited, especially in this situation. Observing the scene, the former emperor was a little embarrassed, saying it seemed she was right. Soo Hyuk still tried to convince himself it was all for the money. Suddenly, Char appeared behind them and said the current situation seemed a bit dangerous. Hyun said she was jealous of how well her teammates were adapting, especially the red-haired guy, who seemed to have struggled a lot at first. Deep down, Soo Hyuk knew everything the guy did was for money. An arrow flew towards them. The former emperor's eyes were alert to everything. Distracted, Chang Hyuk said even second-level monsters weren't a big deal, and Soo Hyuk caught the arrow before it could hit his teammate. There was something strange about this object. He felt something like energy. Soo Hyuk said it wasn't just a goblin's arrow, but one shot by a human. 2 guys appeared, one of them holding a spear. They were impressed that the creatures had been wiped out. Soo Hyuk thought they were from Team 3 and wanted to understand why they were here. They claimed they were just one creature short of leveling up. Someone arrived asking if this was Team 8. Jian Yan from that team seemed captivated by the elf. Shahar asked if they were Instructor Jang Soo-jeong's people and said she didn't remember asking for help. She wanted to know what they were doing here. Him Cholik asked if they really needed a request and suggested it was better to hunt together, saying she wasn't their instructor. Hyun thought that was ridiculous, asking if he realized her Chang Hyuk had been put in a dangerous situation because of them. Jaehyun said she was sorry for what happened, claiming they didn't mean to. But the elf seemed annoyed by it all. Another person appeared and said the team had already apologized. Hyun Soo-jeon from the Immudia Guild, an instructor of Team 3, asked if she wanted to lecture her team. Shah-har said it was obvious. After all, she was still in charge and had the duty to train and guide all the trainees. The woman said she was as cold as a death flower and that kids can make mistakes. Char said even if that was the reason, it was still a clear threat, so there should be a proper apology, not to mention they had interfered in their battle. Hearing that, the woman said that was why stubbornness was the reason she didn't want to talk to elves and told her not to cross the line. Shahar reminded her she was the head instructor of the entire training program and the only one crossing the line was her. Soo-jeong said she didn't understand, acting like an old superior, and told them to take all the byproducts as they were all dirty to her. Before leaving, the woman said if she didn't like it, she could complain to the Immudia Guild. That angered the elf. She yelled after the woman, but the person didn't even listen. The sun was almost setting. They had returned to the mainland. Chang Hyuk suddenly thanked Soo Hyuk for what happened earlier. With a slight smile, Soo Hyuk said it was the right thing to do. The red-haired guy said he would treat him to a meal someday. Embarrassed, the former emperor said that would be too much trouble. Suddenly, Hyun appeared, asking if they were going to ditch her again, saying they were unbelievable. The boys were surprised to see her, as they thought she had already left. Hyun came down the stairs angrily, saying she had just gone to the bathroom and expected the three of them to leave together. Trying to make up for it, Soo Hyuk suggested they go eat together. Soon, the next day arrived. Soo Hyuk had annihilated all the monsters in the dungeon, which helped him level up. Every time that happened, he got stronger. He felt more ready for a real battle and knew that at this rate, he would be back to a high level of martial arts and ready to tell his family. But right now, something was wrong. His instructor had blocked an arrow for him. Jahar yelled at Soo Hyuk that she had seen her a long time ago. She knew where the woman was. Jun Soo-jeon appeared, apologizing, but saying it wasn't a mistake. She claimed she received orders to shoot in this direction, but didn't know they were there, apologizing for causing a small disturbance in Team A. And the elf said it seemed more like a provocation. Soo-jeong said they had provoked her first, because she found out she had contacted the guild master about yesterday's incident. Char said if someone commits a crime, it's natural they should be held accountable. Then an aura surrounded the woman. She said there was no way to talk to the elf and asked if she should just wipe them all out. Still calm, Jar said she knew the instructor didn't like her, but things were going too far. The elf asked if the reason for all this was Soo-hyuk, as she had heard Soo-jeong had feelings for him. That angered Soo-jeong, and she told her to shut up. So Soo-hyuk realized he was in the middle of a love fight. Meanwhile, Jahar said the Immudia Guild wouldn't protect her forever. So, she told her to apologize and back down while she still couldn't. But as a challenge, the other woman asked what the elf would do if she didn't. Jahar denied she would, but said she would be punished. Annoyed, Soo-jeong asked who she thought she was to do that. She then shot at them. The teammates were shocked by the use of dark magic. None of them moved, even as the energy hurled towards them. Char said after this, there would be no turning back. She was enveloped in a bright aura and shot back at her opponent. Soo-hyuk was surprised that the elf blocked the attack so easily. Soo-jeong couldn't back down now that she had gone this far. Besides, because of the other's reputation, she knew she wouldn't be killed. The woman then yelled for Team 3 to attack Team 8. Soo-jeong said if necessary, they should break their opponent's arms and legs. They hesitated at the order, not thinking it was a good idea. With a wicked look, the woman asked if they wanted to join the Immudia Guild. Soo-jeong said an arm or a leg would be enough, telling them to bring back good results. That was enough to make them agree. The trio then charged to attack. Shahar was very confident, even when threatened, which angered Soo-jeong. She then yelled that she would show the elf her precious trainee being crushed. Meanwhile, Soo-hyuk noticed the group had a warrior and an archer, but he still didn't know about the last one. Suddenly, the ground started to crack. A member of Team 3 underwent a strange transformation, becoming stronger, which quite impressed Team 8. They would have to deal with a shapeshifter. Ready for battle, Soo-hyuk said he would handle the giant and the archer, and asked for cover against the remaining enemy. The big guy yelled for him to come on, saying he would smash him to pieces. Soo-hyuk dodged the first attack, moving quickly and jumping to the other side. The big guy turned and threw another punch, but it was nothing for a former emperor. Su Hyuk used the Iron Breaker Fist skill. Then he aimed his punch at Jongwoo, causing a shock as their forces collided. The big guy was thrown back, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Su Hyuk didn't miss the chance to taunt him, saying he had actually managed to block the punch. The big guy admitted his opponent was too fast, so he needed to use another form. He yelled for his teammate, Jae-yeon. The girl was ready. She shot a powerful energy arrow at Su Hyuk. He remained still. The shot reached him and exploded in a flash of light. Jongwook smiled confidently. The smoke slowly cleared. Then they realized the arrow had only hit the ground. A voice called him a pig. It was Su Hyuk, appearing out of nowhere, asking what he was looking for. The former emperor dove straight down at the big guy with a punch. Jongwook fell to the ground, unconscious. Chae-yeon was shocked that her teammate was taken down so easily. The former emperor had a terrifying look. Frightened, the girl told him not to come closer. The guy kicked the air with his wind return kick skill. A long-range attack took down the girl. Seeing her condition, Su Hyuk smiled sheepishly, thinking he had gone a bit too far. He heard someone's voice pleading for mercy. It was Cholek begging the red-haired guy with claws to be lenient, saying he didn't want to do this, and they were only forced. Su Hyuk grabbed him before anything could happen. The former emperor told him to calm down, but Chang Hyuk said he wasn't a monster, he was a human. Suddenly, as if changed, he apologized. His opponent had fallen to the ground. Jongwook had returned to normal, and the girl was still shaking from the pain. Meanwhile, the captain couldn't believe what had just happened. Shahar still trusted in her team's skills. Su Hyuk asked if it was over. Anyway, there wasn't much left of Team 3. A meeting was held at the Baekdusan Guild in the vice president's office. The man had received news of the battle between the teams. He asked if everyone understood the situation. Everyone was impressed with what they saw in the video. Looking at the team leaders, the vice president said that normally Shahar would be in charge of the meeting, but because of what happened, he and Seo Ye-wol would be in charge temporarily. First, he said he was sorry about Team 3's leader being taken down, but he didn't think it was right to blame the trainees. Team leader Lee from Team 11 said only one person had defeated the entire other team. But the other person said that although he thought Jian Su-jeong had gone too far, he believed it was self-defense. Jian Su-jeong said Team 8 had no injuries while her trainees were completely devastated. The vice president said she was the one to blame for starting the fight over a petty love affair, which angered the woman. He continued, saying he was acting as an instructor and leading the case, so he asked her to watch her words. Lee reminded him there was a hierarchy and asked if he was really going to ignore this. The vice president denied it, saying that's why everyone was here, because they were going to vote. Only one trainee was on trial, and that was Yang Su-hyuk. He said the boy was not only an incredible trainee, but also had extraordinary talent. The vice president asked all those who agreed to punish him to raise their hands, but only one person did, and even then, he lowered his hand after the others stared at him. Many people looked tense in the room. Annoyed, Lee asked what their problem was, why they weren't saying anything. Ye-wol said only 2 people wanted the boy punished. The next discussion was about the position of head instructor Shahar. Lee suggested firing the elf and replacing her. The suggestion received a large majority of votes in favor. So, Shahar was demoted to a regular instructor and fined 100 million won, which would be donated to the association. Ye-wol asked if the elf wanted to say anything, but Shahar said no, she believed it wasn't a fight for honor. So, she accepted the punishment, which annoyed her enemies because she was accepting it. Jian Su-jeong asked if that was too much. But Ye-wol said the sentence was fair and once again asked if there were any objections. The woman said this was ridiculous. She asked someone to say something, arguing that in her opinion this was more than just a mockery. The others looked too tense to answer, and Ye-wol smiled at what the woman said. He said the dark cloud witch had become too arrogant after all. Jian Su-jeong angrily called him a bastard. In response, the new head instructor slammed his hand on the table. Ye-wol asked if she knew where she was to be flaunting a guild's name like that. He said training trainees meant nurturing the future of Korea, and above all, it was an honorable mission to protect the world. With an aura surrounding him, he said she had tainted that mission for a pathetic love fight. As a punishment, Ye-wol said that from that moment on, she and the MUG Guild were banned from taking on instructor duties for 3 years. Still, Su-jeong asked who gave him the right to say that. Ye-wol said, as the director in charge of the 56th training program. One of the instructors asked if they should vote on it, which made him agree since the country was still a democracy. Ye-wol said the decision was made by a majority vote. then asked if they chose Bakduzen or Myuji. Everyone knew Bakduzen was the best of the three guilds, making the man think he had made the wrong bet. A complete failure for Myuji. People commented that the meeting was very tense, and they had never seen Yahello so angry, and they wanted to know what would happen to Myuji. One of them commented that they had also talked about Soo-hyuk, asking if they should recruit the guy immediately due to his impressive performance. While the couple was busy talking, the former emperor was observing the others. He wanted to know what had happened in the meeting, but he didn't really care as he would continue to fight. More things happened during the night. After all the training sessions and combat experience, Soo-hyuk had become stronger. He was ready to start. Art of Heavenly Unity. Heaven and earth are connected by a single thread, so they are two, and at the same time one, just as they can also be three. The energy starts in the Lord Dantian and runs through the Ren and Du meridians, known as the Great Circulation. Although difficult, thanks to his experience on the fantasy continent, Soo-hyuk managed to control it, and finally completed it. The meridians were opened and all impurities were removed, leaving him in peak condition. In the system window, he received a notification that he had acquired a level 5 martial arts secret technique and the art of heavenly unity, and a new transformation had occurred in his body. Soo-hyuk also received a body transformation into a unified form. And with the improvements, he had finally taken a step forward, and he would prove it in another training session. Something was slithering quickly underground. A fearsome thing with many giant teeth emerged from the ground. After regaining the art of heavenly unity, Soo-hyuk now wanted to practice his footwork again. The creature got closer to the group. Since this was a desert area, the sand made it difficult to see clearly. Not waiting to become food, Soo-hyuk began to attack with Iron Breaker Palm Severance, punching the monster with unwavering will, using 40 to 100 of his internal energy. Soo-hyuk was worried because the energy was very concentrated, but the internal energy consumption was high. More creatures began to appear. With an aura enveloping his body, he believed he still hadn't used his abilities perfectly. The small aura grew larger, looking like a powerful blue flame. Soo-hyuk prepared for his next move. Then, the system window displayed a legendary discovery. A new technique was discovered, a trigrams step. The former emperor had raised his fist to punch anyone who got in his way, blocking the first monster with his punch. The creature was thrown back by the impact. His friends watched the battle. Frightened, Aeon remarked that the old man was on another level in this mission, and Chang-hyuk thought it was impossible to reach anything like that. Shahar noticed his movements were sharper, and his energy efficiency had improved. Impressed, she wondered if the boy had really gotten that strong in such a short time. Back in the battle, the two remaining monsters looked even more ferocious. Soo-hyuk still had a confident look. He dodged every attack. The former emperor held a stance for the new attack, using the blood demon palm, hitting the weak points of each monster with just his fingers, followed by blood burst. Soo-hyuk didn't even look back. Looking back, he thought something was wrong. That's when he realized he had defeated all the creatures by himself. Soo-hyuk smiled sheepishly because once again, he had kept all the fun for himself. Before he knew it, the 2 weeks of practical combat training were over. In his speech, Yahello said everyone had worked hard. Only the troublemakers from Team 3 didn't pass. This high approval wasn't unheard of, but it was certainly rare. Soo-hyuk knew that overall, the team's performance was excellent. Shahar congratulated her team on a job well done. She said they would no longer be called mere trainees and that their excellent results would help them receive great offers. Still in her speech, the elf said the path they chose was up to them. But as someone who had been their instructor, she had something to say. Char said this moment might not be honorable, but the fact that they were preparing for the battlefield for this world was already an honor. To conclude, she said she hoped they would make choices they wouldn't regret. And that was all she had to say. Aeon and Chang-hyuk were trying to hold back their strong emotions, but she failed and threw herself into the beautiful instructor's arms. The girl said that without the elf, she wouldn't have worked so hard. Shahar was very proud of her. She said she was truly happy to have met everyone and considered it an honor to have been with them until this moment. Still with teary eyes, Aeon asked when they would see her again and asked the elf if she had a phone. Shahar thought for a moment and with a bright smile said that if fate allowed, the wind would bring her news. Chang-hyuk said he had something to say. The red-haired guy started by reminding them he was a criminal. He talked about the first day the elf told him that becoming an awakened was a way to atone and find honor. With a slight smile, she said she remembered, but he revealed it wasn't honorable because he had never had such noble intentions. Crying, Chang-hyuk said he just wanted to make money. He said that in his life, he had never had those thoughts. The red-haired guy continued, saying he could have worked hard at a normal job, but he had chosen the easier path. So, after hearing everything, Shahar said she had never felt ashamed of him, even when they trained together. The elf said it didn't matter how his journey began, and that he shouldn't be bound by it anyway. Making things more intense, Shahar called him Lang Dare and asked him to remember that. She said there was no reason to shed tears of regret anymore, because the desire to protect would bring true atonement. Finally, she said she would be watching over him. Then she turned to Su-hyuk. The former emperor said it was an honor to fight alongside her, and Char had nothing to say to him. Grasping his hand, she said she hoped to see him again on the battlefield. It was a beautiful day for a farewell, and all that was left was to fill out the official awakened profile. In Korea, these individuals were ranked from 1 to 13. For rank 13, the strongest level, there was only one person. And at rank 12, there were 5, and those 6 individuals were the core force that protected and led the country. Su-hyuk was curious about what kind of people they were. Most trainees usually qualified for the first level. Meanwhile, his data was being processed by the orb. The man panicked when he saw the data on the screen. So, the former emperor was simply rank 6. They called those who reached the legendary rank 13 the pinnacle of humanity. Among them was a genius who had reached rank 4 right after finishing the training course in his 20s. A lone warrior with no guild, who had single-handedly defeated countless gates. And that person was Bag Moon-gae. In Korea, he was an unprecedented phenomenon. Even on a global scale, very few people had ever shown such rapid growth. And right now, Su-hyuk had a result that surpassed even Bag Moon-gae. The man asked him to wait a moment as he needed to complete the final paperwork and then issue his hunter license. Meanwhile, the former emperor thought that things exceeded his expectations because the awakened on Earth seemed stronger than he had thought. But then he remembered that the Space Alliance had rated humanity's potential as average and that of the elves a little higher. The angels, who led the Celestial Alliance, were rated at level 1. Their greatest enemy was the demons, which made him think about the possibility of humanity eventually facing those creatures. But Su-hyuk didn't want to think too much about it. After all, this whole ranking system was just a standard set by the angels. In retrospect, Earth was developing at an incredible rate, much faster than other continents, and he knew it was possible to break the limits on this planet. Finally, his license was ready, and to register, he just needed to use the bracelet. The item was placed on his wrist immediately. Soon, a strong light emanated. Su-hyuk was captivated by the magic. The man explained it was made by dwarven craftsmen and enchanted by elves. Su-hyuk found it all impressive. Suddenly, a voice behind the guy said it was a pleasure to finally meet him. Su-hyuk turned and saw a red-haired man in a very colorful suit. Confused, the former emperor asked who he was. The man apologized and said he would introduce himself. He rolled up his suit sleeve, revealing a gold bracelet. From it, a screen lit up displaying his data. But what surprised the former emperor was that the man was rank 11. Shen Wu asked if they could talk. They went to the red-haired guy's room, where music was playing to set the mood. Shen Wu invited him to sit as he was going to give him something very good. Su-hyuk was always on guard. The music played to set the mood for the place, and the red-haired guy hummed along to the melody, but the former emperor thought he was chaotic. Shen Wu pointed to a strange device, asking it to be heated up. Then, it glowed like embers. Shen Wu said it was getting cold, so he had brought this item as he was quite sensitive to the cold. That made the former emperor think it was even stranger that he was using a heater in October. Finally, the drinks were ready. The red-haired guy offered Su-hyuk some so he could try it. Shen Wu said foreigners went crazy for it, and asked if the guy liked it, but Su-hyuk said he liked it a little, quite modestly. The man said he didn't like making his assistants fetch coffee, saying they were too busy with other things, but the former emperor wanted to get straight to the point, and asked what the man wanted to talk about. Shen Wu liked his attitude. The red-haired guy asked if he had ever considered joining the Awakened Association. As always, Su-hyuk answered bluntly, rejecting his request. Shen Wu said the rejection was quite harsh. He said he had never imagined someone who wanted to be a hunter wouldn't want to be associated with the association. Getting ahead of the questions, Su-hyuk also said he had no plans to join any guild. So, Shen Wu asked if he was a mage, which the former emperor had anticipated he would ask, and he clarified that he had no intention of emigrating. That excited the red-haired guy, and he said he also loved the wonderful country they lived in. He also said the guy was very sharp for someone who had just woken up from a coma and asked what his goal was. The man also said that if he wanted something, he just had to say it because if it was within his power, he would make it happen. Soo-hyuk left the room hoping he had gotten a good answer from him. Thinking about it made him remember Hyun and Chang-hyuk, wondering what they were up to. He was surprised by a message. Both his friends were rank 3. Soo-hyuk smiled, seeing that things were definitely starting for them too. He sent a message congratulating them. The former emperor was standing there playing with his phone, but he was still attentive to everything, so something easily caught his attention. There was something very strange around him. A strange light appeared in the sky. Soo-hyuk ran to see what it was. More people were also on their way to do the same. They were terrified by what they were seeing, because suddenly, a gate appeared there. A vehicle announced what had happened to the people and asked everyone to remain calm and go to the underground shelters at Shinshin Station. Soo-hyuk realized it was a rank 5 gate. A security officer asked everyone to move to a safe place, but in the meantime, more than 10 people had been sucked in. The man told them to calm down as the awakened were already there. However, others came closer. They argued about whether they should really wait, afraid that the delay would make the hunters worry about those who had been captured. Then, the former emperor asked if they were going to save them. The group of people turned and asked who the stranger was and also warned him to back off, as it was very dangerous. In response, Soo-hyuk showed them his bracelet. That surprised the group as he was an awakened, and the woman asked about his rank. The red-haired guy introduced himself as Kim Yu-min, a rank 3 protector, and asked the former emperor if he was really going to enter the gate alone. Soo-hyuk replied that he knew protectors could enter in case of an emergency, which the red-haired guy agreed with. Then, the former emperor asked if this was one of those cases, but Yu-min said he didn't understand why an awakened would risk his life for that, even if only a few civilians were swallowed by the gate. Very arrogantly, he said they were the chosen ones, and if people were unfortunately swept away, it was their fate. Soo-hyuk asked how he could say such a thing, but Yu-min insisted he was just stating the obvious. He said they weren't like ordinary citizens and said Soo-hyuk was completely ridiculous for trying to interfere out of some sense of justice. And he added that the former emperor didn't even care about his own life. Soo-hyuk said it wasn't about justice. Annoyed, he asked how someone with that power could still hide like a turtle, and asked if he really deserved to be called an awakened. The former emperor also said he should be ashamed of that because the government didn't pay billions just for him to sit around doing nothing. He walked past the red-haired guy, who was impressed by his skill. Yu-min yelled, asking if he knew that a hunter entering a gate alone was illegal and threatened to report the situation to the association. But Soo-hyuk just replied that he wasn't a coward and said if he had time to complain, he should go home and be a good son to his parents. He entered the gate while Yu-min was still yelling, asking what made him feel so special. The red-haired guy ended by saying he hoped he would be eaten by a monster because he wouldn't care. However, he realized not everyone agreed with him. Yu-min told Hammond that if he also entered, he would be swept away. But the man just said he wasn't a child crying for his mother like him, because he wouldn't stand there like a coward watching civilians get killed. The others felt the same way and entered the gate with him. That angered Yu-min, and he asked if those fools were crazy. In a vast forest, a man was sitting on the ground, confused about where he was. Frightened, he said he thought he was in big trouble. Looking around more carefully, he realized it looked like the inside of a gate. So, he stood up, trying to think about what he should do so he wouldn't die there. He thought about his wife and daughter, Yeon, wondering how much life insurance he had. The man tripped over a vine and fell flat on his face, trying to push himself up with his hands. Suddenly, something caught his attention. Carnivorous plant-type monsters were ready to devour him. Using its vines, the creature grabbed the man's leg, pulling him in to eat him. The monster opened its giant mouth. Desperate, the man yelled that he couldn't die and cried for help. His eyes caught a glimpse of someone. Someone was there for him. Moreover, the man knew it was an awakened. Desperate, he yelled for help again. The monster named it all just left its snack to eat later. Soo-hyuk noticed it was about 2 meters tall, using its vine-like tentacles that swung like arms. He thought that with a sword, his job would be much easier as this wasn't a good situation to be unarmed. The former emperor launched several attacks on the enemy like wind kick, returning horse thrust, and void-piercing force, creating a large hole in the plant. Soo-hyuk also knew that this type of flower needed to be harvested. So, he tried returning wind kick, adding more power with shadowless wind, and then he hit the monster, finally harvesting the evil thing with just his fists. The man was lying on the ground, stunned by the awakening's power. He looked at the former emperor. Soo-hyuk introduced himself to the man, saying he was now safe. Still trembling, the man thanked him. Finally, the protectors reached him. Tam said they came to help him. He asked if everyone was okay, and Soo Hyuk said yes. The swordsman was impressed that he had defeated a large idol by himself. Soo Hyuk said he was going to find the other survivors, and asked them to take care of the man. Before he left, they asked him to wait. Thaeun said he didn't have any equipment. So, he gave him his sword so he could deal with the atolls. The weapon came at the perfect time for the former emperor. With that, he ran into the forest. Soo Hyuk was ready to take down more monsters. As he ran, he felt many presences in that direction. He knew about 20 people had been swallowed by the gate. Even so, only one person had been saved. But no matter what, the man who had unified the entire continent of Chuan would save everyone and close the gate. A hunter's main goal is to destroy the cosmic energy, which is like the heart that supports the world, and close the gate. It exists in many forms, and it can even be a final boss, and defeating it recklessly could cause the whole world to collapse, killing the survivors. That's why they had to save them before confronting the cosmic energy. Fortunately, it wasn't too late for that. It had been a long time since Soo Hyuk had used a sword, and this was a good time. He drew his new weapon. Feeling his presence, the tentacles turned towards him. Soo Hyuk made several slashes with his sword. Debris flew through the air as he continued to level up, and he also reached the unification of sword and body. Using a weapon, the efficiency of key transmission increased by 50 and cutting power increased by 30, almost at the level of a first-class swordsman from the Arcane Continent. Soo Hyuk met the group again, bringing more survivors. He said he was going to find more and asked the protectors to stay there. Worried, Taeyam asked if he could handle everything alone. Soo Hyuk said that fortunately the world wasn't too big and again said he would bring the survivors there. However, the Guardian said that having only one meeting point could be complicated, suggesting they split up, choose different locations, and then keep in touch. Siam showed the former emperor how to do it with a bracelet. He said he would send the location of the last survivors through a licensed messenger, which made it easier for Soo Hyuk, who didn't even know the bracelet had so many useful functions. Taemin said he was sorry he couldn't help much as the protectors weren't really suited for direct combat. But the former emperor said their concern was more than enough. Soo Hyuk went through the forest, using his sword to clear the way. Thanks to the help of the protectors, the rescue efforts continued without any problems. He found more survivors and introduced himself to them. Through the messenger, Taemin said 22 people had been saved, which was good for the former emperor, who could now just focus on fighting. All that was left was to destroy the cosmic energy of this world. The giant tentacles swayed, ready to attack. At 3 meters tall, Soo Hyuk believed the Atoll was the final boss, so he planned to take down the monster quickly. The former emperor launched the first attack, but nothing happened. Besides being huge, its tentacles were also very strong. He dodged the Atoll's attack. Soo Hyuk realized a normal sword skill wouldn't work. After all, a real boss was on another level. There was a method he didn't like, but it had been a long time, so he thought it was okay to use it. Soo Hyuk was channeling energy into his sword, a technique more powerful than high-level martial arts at the cost of the user's will, the soul-stealing demon sword. If he could control it, that insane power would be his own. But he needed to resist the malice it carried. This was the only way to defeat that thing. With dark energy, he charged at the monster. His only enemy was the giant Atoll. Soo Hyuk used the ultimate move of the soul-stealing demon sword, unleashing the soul-stealing slash. The monster took the full force of that energy. This attack seemed to work against the creature, and as a result, the former emperor leveled up again. Thanks to his mental strength, he had resisted the mental corruption. In the system window, it showed he had acquired the advanced immunity to mental corruption skill. His mind was purified, and his proficiency in the soul-stealing demon sword technique increased, and he obtained the title Lesser Destroyer. That was too unexpected for the former emperor. The protectors waited outside the gate. They were worried because Soo Hyuk was taking longer than they expected. Then, finally, someone was about to come out. It was Soo Hyuk, safe and sound. Taemin and the others ran to the former emperor. He said they were very worried. Soo Hyuk said he was fine and thanked him for the sword. He said it was a very well-made weapon. Laughing, Taemin said he had spent his entire fortune to have the dwarves make it, and he was very happy that Soo Hyuk liked it. Soo Hyuk was about to leave when he was called back. Hunter King, rank 7 and president of the Kerr Guild, invited him to destroy the gate together. The offer surprised the former emperor. Suddenly, a guild member caught the president's attention. Looking where the man pointed, they realized the gate had disappeared. They were astonished. Soo Hyuk had single-handedly cleared a rank 5 place. To them, that was unbelievable. Soo Hyuk walked past them, as if he were an extremely powerful being. which angered Yumin when he realized he was being treated like a hero. Annoyed, the red-haired guy said that even if he had done well, he still had to be punished for breaking the law. Thiam asked what Soo Hyuk was supposed to have disrespected, and Yumin said he had entered the gate alone. The swordsman said it was a twisted logic to try to bring down Soo Hyuk, and also reminded him that technically, he hadn't entered alone. However, Yumin still argued, saying that bastard had never intended to follow the law, and they had just accidentally gotten caught up. Losing his patience, Thiam said there was no point in talking to him. Then, the red-haired guy started making a scene, saying that the former emperor had tried to enter the gate alone, and ignored them, even when warned, treating the association like a joke. The onlookers wondered what was wrong with the two of them, hoping at least Yumin would show a little gratitude. Then, people started commenting, wanting to know who this guy was who was making a fuss, and if he was from the association to act like that. That only made the protector even more frustrated. He said it was time to show what would happen to illegal awakened. Then, the man grabbed Soo Hyuk's shirt. Yumin threatened the criminal, but the former emperor looked calm, as if the nuisance was nothing. Furious, Yumin asked if he was going to hit him, because he would add that to the charges, emphasizing that he would personally put him in prison. The former emperor's response was a punch to his stomach that took the bully by surprise. Yumin fell to the ground, groaning in pain. Before Soo Hyuk could do anything, another person stood in front of him. Inku said he should be thanking the person who had saved everyone at the gate, asking him what he thought the awakened were. But his lecture only angered Yumin more, and he asked who he was. The man introduced himself again, as the president of the Guild. Yumin bowed to the authority figure, and everyone looked toward someone even higher up. Shinwoo revealed he had heard everything from where he stood. He introduced himself as the vice president of the Awakened Association. First, he apologized for not reacting in time to the situation and promised to ensure nothing like this happened again. Shinwoo said that if anyone felt unwell, they could go to any university hospital in the association's network as all expenses would be covered by them. An old woman said that without that awakened, they would have been in serious trouble, and asked for him not to be punished. Crying, the first person who was saved said that without his savior, he would never have seen his family again, also asking for the former emperor not to be punished. Shinwoo said they shouldn't worry about that, because it wouldn't happen. Then, he asked Soo Hyuk to check his license. He quickly did so by touching his bracelet. The screen displayed the status of a solo player, a license that allowed him to enter gates alone. That even surprised the former emperor, who thought it was the request he had made earlier. Shinwoo kindly explained that he had the right to enter alone, and on top of that, he had saved people, so he deserved the reward of a hero. The man asked everyone to give Soo Hyuk a round of applause. Thanks to the vice president, the gate incident was resolved. Yumin's license was suspended for 3 months, and he was sent to serve on the front lines for 6 months as a punishment. Soo Hyuk's hunter rank increased to 8, and he received a 20 million won bonus. Shinwoo said the association's budget was tight, so that was all they could give. Soo Hyuk said it was fine. He just wanted one favor, which was for his name not to be published in connection with the incident. The vice president said it wasn't a difficult request, and he would make sure it was respected. Soo Hyuk finally went home. The guy was resting. He looked at the 80 million won mana stone, and he had 2 of them. It was Tiaman who had picked them up, and handed them over, because the hero was busy saving people. It was a huge unexpected bonus. Antipal, his heroic act had brought in 180 million won, with 160 million left after taxes, but a total of 200 million with his bank balance. He had made so much money in just 1 day, and hoped to make another 300 million to take out a small loan and buy an apartment. Owning a house had been his family's dream for years. In the status window, it said he was at level 18, and some other levels had also increased, and there was new information. He turned on the simplified version, getting a better look at everything. Soo Hyuk remembered the title Lesser Destroyer and wanted to understand what it could do. With it, his stats increased by 5 when entering a dimension alone. After he touched the screen, Soo Hyuk was flooded with screens. There were countless techniques that could help with demonic arts and magic-based types. In dungeons, illusion and spiritual arts were the hardest to deal with, but he had enough resistance, so it wasn't a big problem. On Earth, to achieve that kind of immunity required the Harmony stage, but he had unlocked it just as a skill reward. If he reached Harmony and strengthened his mental defenses further, he would be completely immune to illusion techniques. Suddenly, his sister entered the room asking what her appa was doing. Sua said it had been a long time since he had talked to himself, and the guy said it was nothing, and she was being too suspicious. She said she would cut some fruit to eat. From the news, she knew about the gate incident near Sinjin Station. Surya showed her brother, and he pretended to be surprised. At least he was sure the vice president had kept his word. Something caught Surya's attention. His bracelet was emitting some kind of signal, so he quickly hid it. Soo-hyuk intended to tell his sister, but he was waiting for her when she was alone, although he wanted to keep the gate incident a secret. He didn't have much time to think as his sister had grabbed his hand. Surya revealed she had been suspicious, but now she had confirmation that he was an awakened. The girl was a little angry, reminding him that it hadn't been long since he was in the hospital. Soo-hyuk replied that he remembered, and that was why he had participated. Surya also said the bracelet meant he was rank 6 or higher, accusing him of being awakened for a while. To make matters worse, the former emperor said he could soon reach gold, because he was very talented. His sister asked if he thought he could get away with this just by talking. The news returned to the gate incident, saying that a rising star among Korea's awakened had played a key role in stopping it, but the association had not revealed his identity, although they said he could follow in Baekmungak's footsteps to become the next octad. Suspicious, Surya asked if it could be about him, and the guy confirmed it. She asked about his rank and got the answer on the news that he was rank 8. The vice president said it wasn't just about his skills, but that he was also strong and had a sense of justice. All Surya could focus on was the rank. One of the rescued people was being interviewed, saying he could only think about surviving, while thinking about his family, until the hero appeared. The man said he had stopped believing in those things when he was 12, but now he knew it was real. He asserted that heroes exist. But even so, Soo-hyuk believed he wasn't a big deal, and he had just done what another awakened would have done. Since that day, the world couldn't stop talking about what had happened and even about having faith in humanity and the power of Korea. On the news, they continued to talk about the god-level awakened who had shaken things up. The man talked about how he chose to keep his identity private, and everyone respected that. On the phone, Shen Wu told him to enjoy it, as he had done something incredible, revealing he was a big fan of the nameless hero. He even said that if he weren't the vice president, he would have started a fan club, which made the hero ask if he was posting secret comments. Shen Wu just replied that he was a man of mystery. After revealing the truth, he formed a temporary alliance with his sister, with the first rule being to deceive their parents. After all, if they found out, one of them might faint. The second rule was to reach gold as quickly as possible. And to do that, he needed to reach rank 9, who were the elite, and obtain a security clearance. The third rule was to never overdo it. After all, even Soo-hyuk knew there was no way to stop now. So, he agreed to follow the rules. At least, that was a major hurdle overcome. The hero decided to go to a convenience store. He thought that if he continued like this, his identity would eventually be revealed. For now, he needed to hide it. This was embarrassing for Soo-hyuk, but it was better than being discovered. A lot of suspicion was left about the hero, and some people even suspected it was a story made up by the association. He was used to such things on the continent of Joon. Fame and rumors always followed him. Soo-hyuk destroyed another gate. In the past month, he had single-handedly cleared about 20 gates. Monster blood dripped from his fist. Fortunately, everything he was doing was not being reported, but he knew a masked figure constantly moving through the gates would not go unnoticed. People naturally started to notice his achievements. All eyes were on the strange nameless. Back at the Baekdusan Guild in the president's office, all this was giving him a headache. He stopped reading and asked the other person to stop tapping his fingers, but the long-haired guy said it was normal, because he couldn't sit still. Seeing this made Yahello wonder if the man should really be the leader of the biggest guild in the country. He then said that if the guy was that impatient, he should go see him, which excited Hyeon about the idea. He said it was better than sitting around and believed that if he was straightforward with Nameless, he wouldn't ignore him. Suddenly, his leg was frozen to the floor, surprising Hyeon, and he complained about it. Seo Yeol explained that he shouldn't run off like a maniac. He explained they had sent a bunch of messages and calls, and if there was no response, it was because the masked guy had no intention of appearing. Hyeon asked if they were going to sit around waiting for the guy to escape, and how long they would let Baekmungak manipulate them. He also complained that other guilds would be after him. And Yahello suspected Nameless was Soo-hyuk. The guy with glasses said that even if it wasn't the boy, he had the potential of the Nameless one. And the long-haired guy asked him to tell him the plan. Yahello said that during training, Soo-hyuk had never wanted to communicate, ignoring messages and calls from guilds, aware that at this rate, the former emperor wouldn't sign with anyone and pressuring him was a very immature move. The man said there was only one solution, which was Shear, which surprised Hyeon. Yahello said she was Soo-hyuk's instructor, and although the elf denied it, He knew they had some kind of connection. The long-haired guy said there was no way to convince her, especially since she wasn't even human. Ewell said not only that, the boy wasn't her only trainee, and so he had their call history. Even if he didn't know how deep the relationship was, they were in contact on the list. Taeyong saw Baek Yeon's name, who had been considering the guild's offer. Ewell said that besides his family, the girl was the only one close to him, and asked if it was worth approaching her. The long-haired guy asked the same thing. So, Four Eyes decided she should sign with the Baekdusan Guild, because with her, their chances were too good. Taeyong asked if they would then have a direct line to Nameless, and the other agreed, receiving a compliment that he was a scheming, disgusting bastard. Ewell asked if he didn't like it. With a wicked, scary smile, Taeyong wanted them to do it immediately. In another gate, Soo-hyuk was ready to make more money. Without a second thought, he started wiping out monsters. His enemy was a giant mantis with an attack that froze time. A big challenge for the masked hero. He unleashed the Iron Breaker Palm. The ultimate move, one thought, break the darkness, caused a huge explosion in the small area, and took down the giant mantis. Soo-hyuk looked at all the destruction he had caused. All the effort had secured a level up and mastery of the rank skill, Iron Breaker Palm. The former emperor was far from done. He needed to get even stronger. So, he continued his cleanup work, using his special tool to retrieve the byproducts. And luckily, he got a mana stone. Most of the mantis's body was useless, but at least he could get the 2 front claws, which were valuable as craftsmen highly favored those materials, and just one pair could cost 10 million won. Soo-hyuk calculated that selling it with the mana stone would get him at least 50 million won. Suddenly, something caught the masked guy's attention. A strange stone appeared in his path. It was the cosmic energy of this world, radiating hostility, and he knew that if he left it alone, it would take many lives. Fortunately, Soo-hyuk was there to stop that from happening. He threw his knife at the cosmic energy. The spear hit the stone, causing a crack where it impacted. Then, it continued to crack more, as it radiated its energy. With all the loot in his bag, the masked guy got on an ant, starting the engine as fast as he could, ready to escape this world. Soo-hyuk was going at full speed. In the distance, he saw the light of the exit. The hero came out through the gate, carrying all his goods. The people waiting for him outside already knew the whole place had been cleared as always. After all, that's what you expect from the nameless hero. He had recently bought had increased his income, and it was also necessary to have the right equipment for solo hunting. Plus, since the item was made by dwarves, it was extremely durable, and it had a storage expansion enchantment. For Soo-hyuk, it was worth it because it was cheaper, making it a solid investment for 800 million won. So, the hero continued on, having made a lot of money. Soo-hyuk said he was outside the building. He said he had some mantis claws and mana stones, and a disposal team would be sent. Taking advantage of the call, the former emperor asked if there were any rank 6 or 7 gates, but the answer was that those gates belonged to guilds. He asked for something smaller, but the person on the other end of the line suggested he should rest as he had been working a lot. Soo-hyuk said he would think about it, and was then invited for coffee, but he declined, leaving it for another day. And the person then said they would handle the goods and update him soon. It was a bad time for there to be no available gates. He needed to reach rank 9 to finally tell his parents. Checking his phone, he noticed a message. Asura asked him to let her know what he was doing after lunch and suggested he return immediately if he was injured. He told his sister the whole situation. Soo-hyuk realized he also had a message from a Hyun. They were desperate messages from the girl saying she was going to join the Baekdusan Guild. The former hero congratulated her and asked her to let him know about the celebration. With everything settled, it was time for lunch. He entered a restaurant. It was still early for lunch, so the place was empty, but at least he could eat in peace. He heard someone say the nameless hero had stopped by the association. The other employee said that the masked guy had even submitted mantis claws and mana stones, even complaining that Nameless had just become an awakened and was already getting special treatment. But his colleague defended the hero, saying it was deserved and worth keeping someone like that, and said that in another country, the media might have torn him apart. With no other choice, the man admitted he was right. After all, the masked guy had the potential of Baekmugak, and losing him would be a disaster. What caught Soo-hyuk's attention in the conversation was when they talked about the Tranan Dimension, a long-range restricted area where nothing had been found yet. Even the former emperor knew it was impossible for anyone to do it alone. They commented on the strange silence about this situation. The pair also talked about the association collaborating with Elvenheim, and even about the beautiful female instructor who had appeared. Then, The other person mentioned a rumor that Elfenheim had developed a new magic tool that could narrow down the cosmic location to the size of an island. Soo-hyuk was no longer at the table. The guy was paying the bill while hearing that the association would soon make an announcement to recruit hunters. That caught Soo-hyuk's attention. With no active gates, there wasn't much to do, and he knew he wouldn't be able to handle the Tranan dimension alone. Remembering what the employee had said, he knew it was the perfect opportunity. He needed to be quick, so he called the vice president. But apparently, the man was quite busy. Soo-hyuk thought about what he should do as he needed to be faster than the guilds. Suddenly, someone appeared, saying he was quite arrogant, and with his talent and strength at his age, he had every right to be. The man called his name, showing he knew who he was. To make it even better, the one-eyed guy called him nameless. The man said he didn't like to chat, so he would get straight to the point. First, he asked if the boy knew why he was here, but Soo-hyuk didn't know. The one-eyed guy introduced himself as Park Muji. Soo-hyuk replied that the man wasn't talented either, and asked what he was trying to do and that strength wasn't everything in this world. With a smile, Muji asked if that was how he intended to play. Glowing in and aura, he said he would have to show what real strength was. He summoned an energy dragon and shot his attack at Soo-hyuk. The former emperor watched carefully. He had dodged being swallowed. Soo-hyuk realized the old man's ability was a type of dark-based supernatural power, and it was really fast. The creature continued to chase him, forcing him to push himself to the limit. This would not be an easy fight for the hero. Mugi said he had dodged well, but that didn't mean it would help as the boy was just a slippery eel, which hurt Soo-hyuk's pride. He thought that in Juon, he wouldn't even have been able to touch his sleeve. This time, he intended to fight. Seriously, the former emperor charged straight into the attack. There were many energy dragons ready to devour him. He dodged every creature, too fast to keep up with his movements, using that tactic to face his enemy head-on. The boy was more impressive than the old man expected. At least the fight had just gotten more interesting. Mugi launched a new attack, but this was Soo-hyuk's chance. While the one-eyed guy was distracted by his clone, the old man tried to read his movements, but Nameless was faster. Soo-hyuk understood that even if it was a supernatural ability, in the end, it was still just fire and it could be extinguished by consuming the air around it. So, he used Wind Slash and returning Wind Kick, countering all the flames around him, which annoyed the one-eyed guy because he was too skilled. Although it had only been 2 months since he had become an awakened, Soo-hyuk finally stopped right in front of him. Energy was surging through his entire body. His next move was a secret art of Shaolin. Unleashing the 100 Steps Divine Fist, Mugi tried to protect himself from the powerful explosion. His flames were not as big as before, so they were quickly extinguished by the attack. Then, he opened his eyes. Soo-hyuk was using a move to touch him. The former emperor explained that right there was a pressure point, and hitting it would instantly cause his death. Mugi wanted to understand what kind of technique this was, only realizing it was a physical enhancement. Soo-hyuk said he didn't know why the old man was looking for him, but he hoped they wouldn't meet again, as he didn't have a good relationship with the guild. He also warned that if they met again, he would finish him off. Mugi asked if he knew that the Octet had put him on their target list, and if the boy thought they were good people. Pleading, the old man asked him to join Moji because no matter how strong he was, he wouldn't be able to handle it alone. The silence of Nameless annoyed him. Finally, in an empty alley, his blood dripped to the ground. Soo-hyuk felt like his insides were being twisted. He figured he had probably overdone it. Now more than ever, he needed to speed up his plan. It turned out he had just fought one of the only rank 12 awakened in Korea, and he knew that if he had faced him head-on, he would have lost. But he had no regrets, as he had at least dealt with that arrogant bastard. What worried him was the Octet, who, unlike Muji, would not be easy to deal with. So, he needed to become stronger to face them. At the international airport area, a figure led the way, followed by people who looked like his bodyguards. The man had a beautiful smile like an idol. Andrew Volodymyr was greeted by his butler. He greeted back, who said the car was waiting for him. Everyone around stared and thought he might even be an actor as he looked quite familiar. Ching Man said if he had contacted them earlier, they could have avoided all this commotion, but Vladimir said he didn't expect to have to move urgently either. But the old man said even so, a heads up before leaving would have been better. The ride was in a small limousine. Vladimir asked where Nameless was from. His butler said it had only been a few months since he was in a coma, and the strange thing was how quickly he had become strong. The blonde guy asked if he was young and got the answer that the nameless hero was 27 years old. Vladimir revealed the masked man was the reason he came. This would be very interesting for him. He asked when Baek Moon-kek would be released. Changman said they heard he might be released next week, and asked them to wait a bit. Mirror was not happy that Nameless would be hiding for another year, and complained that the training fanatic hadn't changed at all. The driver looked a little uncomfortable with the blonde guy's presence. Enter Vladimir, the Blood Prince, also known as the ruler of the night, a Russian superhero. Since he was part of the infamous Octet, it was no surprise he was so arrogant. The blonde guy noticed something was wrong. He asked the driver if he didn't like hearing his boss being insulted. Changman tried to smooth things over, saying he was just a kid. Andrew asked if he had said anything wrong, because the bastard had locked himself up to train, so he had to come. Once again, his attention turned to the boy, and he asked if he didn't like him, but the driver said no. The blonde guy leaned in and told him to relax and smile. Changman promised to make the driver understand his place, and Andrew said he had known Baek Moon-kek since he was a child, and he mocked him, asking if his dog thought it could talk back to him like that. The driver asked him not to insult his master. A wicked smile appeared on the blonde guy's face, and Andrew with a sinister aura asked if the bastard had really said that to him. The driver was truly scared. It was as if he was about to be swallowed by a monster. He couldn't even move. If this continued, the guy knew it would be the end of him, so the driver begged for mercy. Then, all that aura disappeared. Changman asked if the guy was okay. The driver was trembling with fear, only realizing that for a moment, he had thought he was going to the afterlife, but the old man knew something was wrong with the guy, so he asked to stop for a moment. And the blonde guy said the driver had a terrible look on his face. Andrew told him to relax because life was too short to go around being sad. It was another morning. The internal injuries from the battle with Park Mugi had not yet healed. If Soo-hyuk tried to move recklessly, the pain would start to spread like poison, so he couldn't enter a gate now. He needed to recover first. The door was opened by his mother. She found it strange that he ran every day, but this time he was at home, and she also said she had the day off. Then, his father appeared, and suggested they go out together for the first time in a long time. Soo-hyuk appeared, agreeing with the idea. Finally, Soo-hyuk asked if everyone had the day off, and the three of them agreed at the same time. The former emperor, though, had nothing left to say. Finally, he said they had planned this without him, and it would have been better if they had told him first. His father said it wasn't like an unemployed person like him had anything to do. Without revealing anything, Soo-hyuk said even unemployed people have things to do. At that moment, the man said that sometimes his son came home very late, although he claimed it was just training, suspecting he was hiding something, but his mother defended him, saying that children don't need to tell everything, and they also need some privacy. Soo-hyuk felt awkward when the woman said she had understood everything. Father said he was just a little worried, and mother said staying at home all day wasn't good either. Anyway, the older man said they would still go to the Han River Park, maybe watch a movie or go out to eat. That made the youngest in the family happy as they hadn't done anything like that in a long time. And Soo-hyuk added that mother wouldn't have to cook, which made the woman ask why, and the former emperor tried to explain that she wouldn't have to do any work at all. Suro reminded them they should bring a lunchbox to the park, even if they ended up eating dinner out. The girls' eyes lit up when they made the request to their father, and Soo-hyuk remembered that when it came to food, the man's cooking skills were much better. He pretended to be surprised by the request. Father was ready to show off his cooking skills. He announced that everyone should watch him in the living room while he cooked. His hands were very skilled, even when slicing onions. The next step was to sprinkle a little salt. Amused by the scene, Sura asked where her father had learned that confidence, and mother laughed, saying he was really feeling inspired. Finally, the umarice was ready for breakfast. Soo-hyuk's and his mother's eyes sparkled at the dish. Father gave Soo-hyuk his plate. Seeing his portion, the former emperor thought it was a bit much. The older man said his son had been training hard until late, so he needed to eat well. Mother said it didn't matter if he was unemployed. Seeing him healthy made her happy. They praised the food again, and father found it strange that his son was so quiet, and he said the food was delicious. It had been a long time since Soo-hyuk had felt this warm, wishing every day could be like this. The small house wasn't unpleasant, but he still couldn't stop thinking about it. He wondered if this was the best time to tell them his secret. Worried, father asked what was wrong as he had barely touched his food. Soo-hyuk put his spoon down on the table. With his head bowed, he said he needed to tell them. Before he could say anything, Soo-ra called him. The girl signaled that now was not the time to tell the truth. Soo-hyuk thought that if he told them, they might feel like they had lost the son who had just woken up from a coma. His bank account had about 500 million won. If he took out a small loan, he could buy a 30 p.m. apartment. But the octet was on the move, so he needed enough strength to face them. And to do that, he needed more money. The weather was perfect for an outing. Soo-hyuk noticed the car was shaking a lot, and figured it was because it was really old, so he intended to buy a new one. Impressed, Sura looked at the advertisement of the Awakened. There was a huge poster on the building, and the girl commented that being one of those special people didn't seem bad. She said the number of dropouts had decreased and the public liked them like celebrities. Soo-hyuk said if that was the case, the family wouldn't have to suffer so much, but mother said she didn't want her daughter's hands to be stained with blood. She said there were things more important than money. Then, the girl joked if it was having a beautiful daughter, and so they continued their trip. The family spent a few rare peaceful moments together, and Soo-hyuk couldn't remember the last time he had a day like this. He enjoyed the delicious snacks his father had made. Soo-hyuk had lost a lot of time with them when he was in Chuan, so he wanted to make them even happier. He wanted to use his abilities to do everything he could for his family. Mother was impressed and asked if all this was too expensive. The former emperor said since his sister had booked the movie tickets, he would pay for the meal. She asked where an unemployed person like him got the money from. Soo-hyuk said he was fine and he planned to start working soon. Father asked if he was sure about that as he had just woken up. With a smile, Soo-hyuk told him not to worry, as he had recovered and rested enough. Mother was grateful that he was trying so hard and asked him to let them know if anything was difficult. Another day was coming to an end. With a worried look, father asked why his son was like that, and Soo-hyuk explained it was because the day felt like it passed too quickly. Soo-hyuk asked the man if he felt the same way. So, mother joked that he was becoming his father, and that worried her because she didn't want another super emotional person. Suddenly, they realized Sura had been gone for a while, and the woman said she had gone to the bathroom. Soo-hyuk suggested going to check if everything was okay. The guy went around looking for his sister everywhere. Elsewhere, the girl was being slapped. The one doing it said a place like this wasn't for a beggar like her. One girl whispered that she was a failure. The other girl heard and said someone was asking for it. She charged at Sura, asking if she thought she was special. Before another slap could land, the girl's hand was caught. That surprised her. Soo-hyuk had a look as if he could take down anyone. He said it seemed like this was some kind of camouflage technique. Annoyed, the girl asked who he was to interfere. So, Soo-hyuk introduced himself as Sura's older brother. His sister said she was fine. She told him not to get involved, but he asked how he couldn't when his sister was about to be hit. Suddenly, he looked at her as he noticed something. No, the former emperor knew his sister had been slapped before. Soo-hyuk asked what kind of cheap, half-assed camouflage she was wearing, looking like a monster. A terrifying aura surrounded him, and the girl felt it, and was horrified. Then, she screamed, calling him a pervert and telling him to let go. Hana Ran opened her eyes, and realized nothing was holding her. Soo-hyuk laughed, and asked if she was crazy, which angered the other girl as she asked if she was joking with her. Soo-hyuk wanted to know the details later, but for now, he told Hana Ran to stop before things got worse. But that only angered her more, and the girl asked what a beggar like him would do. The former emperor said being poor wasn't a crime, but Hana Ram insisted it was because the rich were free, and the poor were punished, and that's how the country worked. She asked if growing up like that had made him stupid, and said the girl couldn't even talk back when she was hit. The girl said her family could make them unable to afford their shabby little apartment and suggested he kneel and beg for forgiveness. Soo-hyuk asked if that was all he had to do. Sura tried to ask him to let it go. Looking at Hana Ram, he knew for sure she had money and power, so he said she just looked like an insecure child trying to hide her inferiority complex, and wearing expensive clothes. She looked even poorer. He said the problem had to be the person, not the clothes. His words angered Hana Ram, and she tried to hit him with her handbag, but he caught it easily. The rich girl asked him to give it back. She asked if he knew how expensive her handbag was, threatening to kill him if it got even a little scratch. To tease her, Soo-hyuk said if she liked it so much, she should think twice before swinging it. And she said he couldn't afford it even if he worked for a month. The former emperor said she looked a lot like a beggar and still kept calling others that. Soo-hyuk tore her bag apart. The girl's belongings fell to the floor. It was as if her soul had left her body, and Hana Ram asked if she was dreaming. With a satisfied smile, he said it was reality. Hana Ram panicked when she saw what was left of her bag. The girl couldn't believe the bastard had actually done that. Then, she pointed at Soo-hyuk. Then she told her friends to hit him, but he was a former emperor, and he easily dodged a rich girl. Soo-hyuk picked up his sister so she wouldn't be hit by a handbag. He easily backed away from them. Seeing the little fight, Hana Ram suspected the guy wasn't an awakened. Soo-hyuk took her phone. He was going to check if it was recording correctly. On the screen, it showed the group of girls laughing at the two siblings. A black orb was hurtling straight towards him. The former emperor recognized it immediately. With just one hand, he blocked the object, and it fell straight to the ground. Laughing, he asked if she had a bodyguard hiding somewhere, but it was a pity because her phone was in his hands. Soo-hyuk said she must have come from a high-status family and threatened, asking what would happen if the video was leaked. He told her to consider it a warning not to mess with his sister anymore, and she should be grateful that only the bag was ruined. Before leaving, the former emperor said that if he wanted to, he could wipe them all out right there, which scared the mean girls. Away from the noise, the two siblings were sitting down. Soo-hyuk said she didn't want to show that side of herself. She said they were classmates for all 3 years of high school and never got along because Hiram felt superior, and things got worse in their sophomore year when her father's business started to boom. Soo-hyuk wanted to know more, and his sister just said it must have been terrible for the other girl. Laughing, Soo-hyuk said she also had a brother, a handsome awakened, and he studied very well. She asked why he was reacting like that, as he had said she was beautiful when she awakened. And the former emperor said it was a very emotional moment. Anyway, the girl didn't care anymore as it was just Hana Ram showing her inferiority because she hated that Soo-hyuk looked even more beautiful. But Sura revealed there might be another reason, which made her brother curious. She said that around the end of their sophomore year, the guy Hana Ram liked had rejected her and confessed to Sura instead. That startled Soo-hyuk, realizing there was a little love triangle. Sura said she had obviously refused to go out with him because she didn't have time for romance as her brother was in a coma and her mother was sick. So, she laughed at Hana Ram's revenge. The former emperor said he should have pulled her hair instead of destroying the bag, but his sister said that was enough. She laughed, telling him he was amazing. Sura told him to consider it a small step back before a big leap, and if he became stronger, he could get revenge in a worse way. The girl stood up and suggested they go back as their parents must be waiting. It was late when the family got home. Everyone was happy about what they had. Soo-hyuk asked them to go ahead as he was going to the convenience store to buy pain relief patches for his parents, and his sister asked for a melon ice cream. The awakened walked calmly on the street until something caught his attention. It was Hana Ram and her 2 bodyguards. Soo-hyuk said she had appeared sooner than he expected. The girl asked him to hand over her phone, and then she would forget what had happened with the bag. He asked if she still hadn't understood the warning, but Hana Ram said her patience had a limit, and if he continued like this, her bodyguards would handle it. She also said the video wouldn't just cause trouble for her because he, as an awakened, had attacked her, which was illegal. Soo-hyuk said he hadn't done anything. He had only used force on a bag, but she had hit his sister. Annoyed, Hana Ram said he didn't want to listen to her. She then ordered her bodyguards to hit Soo-hyuk and take his phone. The 2 of them charged at him. Soo-hyuk just joked that one of them had thrown the first punch. He said if they continued, he would consider it self-defense. The awakened prepared to counter, kicking the bodyguard's leg. The man froze immediately. Soo-hyuk used pressure points as it was the easiest solution. He hit a few pressure points. The man screamed as some of his liquid flowed out. Then, the other bodyguard surprised him, saying it was a stance technique, and he knew Soo-hyuk had only recently become an awakened. He introduced himself as Kim Man-soo, saying he had thought Soo-hyuk was just a normal warrior and never expected him to use his black iron ball. Soo-hyuk laughed, calling him dramatic, using the tone as if he was recognizing him. Annoyed, the man asked if the former emperor really didn't know who he was. Soo-hyuk asked if he should be impressed and if it was a lame name he was proud of. Kim Man-soo said he was a candidate for the vice presidency of the Chunni Guild. With a smile, he said Soo-hyuk was very interesting. The bodyguard asked if he thought that just because he got lucky once, he was allowed to act arrogant, and declared this was a different class from a duel. He then threw one of his balls. Soo-hyuk remained vigilant as the object flew towards him, but he easily dodged it, the black ball destroying the wall it hit. So, the former emperor realized it was an iron ball, and its user, Black Light Ball Man-soo, a rank 10 awakened who had retired after losing the race for vice president and was no longer active, so he had never leveled up. But if he had continued, he could have done it easily. And they said his instantaneous destructive power when he threw those balls surpassed even Yugi's. Kim Man-soo said his performance was impressive. He said that at first, he thought his enemy had blocked it by luck, but he realized he was wrong. Kim Man-soo knew he was that guy, the famous masked hero, Nameless. However, surprisingly, Kim Man-soo said he didn't want to be his enemy, which angered Ram. So he replied that he would have to cancel his request as he had no desire to fight the other. Mansu said he was very happy to meet him, even if in a very unpleasant situation, and he revealed he had been looking for him for quite some time. He also said this wasn't a good place for a long chat. The man said he would find him again soon and hoped they could have a productive conversation, but not caring, Soo-hyuk told him to just dream on, because in reality, they were not friends. Mansu asked him not to cut him off so coldly. The former emperor continued, saying he didn't care, and asked if he had heard about his reputation. Mansu said he had heard many things, including about the fight with the Amuji Guild. The man's attitude still made the former emperor suspicious. So, the bodyguard said not to be so sensitive as he had his sources. He said anyway, he had thought he was solving some problem, but ended up catching a big fish. Back to Ram, she wondered what she should do as in the end, the fight had turned into a friends meeting. Her first move was to run, but Soo-hyuk was faster and surprised her by asking where she was going again. He said that if he wanted to get rid of her, it would be easy, which terrified the girl even more. He hit her right on her weak spot. Ram fell to the ground, clutching her throat. Soo-hyuk explained that he had locked her pressure points so she couldn't speak. The girl made a gesture and he tried to guess if she was begging for mercy. Not in a hurry to end things, the former emperor said he could make her suffer for as long as he wanted or break something else, but he didn't want that. Soo-hyuk said he wasn't the one to punish her, his sister was. Ram started to tremble more, and he told her to wait, as he would make her realize that everything she believed in was meaningless. The girl remained on the ground crying. Even the person hired, as her bodyguard, did nothing. Far away in a luxurious mansion, the man asked if he had failed to retrieve the video. With his head bowed, the bodyguard did not answer. Jack, a member of the National Assembly, with a threatening tone said that he could be thrown into the Incheon Sea and complained about him not being able to do a simple job. All the other man did was apologize. Da asked about Mansu and found out he had simply run away, which made the old man vent his anger by punching the table. Annoyed, the man promised that as soon as he became president, he would put a collar on the awakened. Da asked if he had heard anything else, and the bodyguard said the voice was too low to hear anything. The old man called him useless and fired him, telling him to call his daughter. A little scared, the guy said Ram didn't want to come. That annoyed the old man, and the bodyguard said he would leave things as they were for now. The phone rang with a call from Kim Mansu. As soon as he picked it up, he asked why the man had left in a hurry when the job wasn't finished, and he replied that it wasn't just a stupid thing to solve. Kim Mansu said he should have assessed the target and asked if the man knew that his request fee had exceeded the budget. She laughed, asking if taking down a newly awakened was too much for him, and the other asked if he knew that even newcomers could be dangerous, but the man said that even so, he didn't expect the great Kim to complain about it. Mansu said he was calling because he was concerned and couldn't ignore it. He then revealed the boy was nameless. Realizing he had understood the danger, the awakened told him not to make unnecessary enemies. Mansu hung up while the frightened man processed the information. He even smashed the phone on the floor. Joe was angry at how the other person had treated him, a member of the National Assembly. Another day, Soo-hyuk was on the phone with Shin Woo, who had been busy for quite some time. The vice president said he had heard about the situation with Park Moo-gi, and apologized for not keeping an eye on the one-eyed guy. Shin Woo asked if the former emperor was seriously injured, and Soo-hyuk said if he was, he wouldn't be on the phone. That was good for the vice president, who had a request to make. He asked the guy about the Tranan dimension, which he confirmed. The gray-haired guy said that then he must also know the rumor that they were about to close it. Shin Woo said the main guilds had requested to enter and access the magic tools that were still being tested for another month, but he revealed that for them, it would be ready in half the time. Shin Woo said Korea needed a hero and Nameless was a great title, so he asked if he planned to become one. Soo-hyuk thought about the possibility of becoming a hero, but he was determined and ready to become one. Soo-hyuk was not the right person for the role of a hero. He had never loved the world. But even so, they had called him that. However, it didn't suit him. But if creating a hero was just a way to bring stability to Korea, then he could accept it. After all, this was for his family. There were only 15 days left until the Tranan dimension opened. Until then, he needed to get even stronger. Martial arts required 3 main elements: mind, technique, and body. Like a warrior, at the peak, he had mastered the last 2 elements. But for Soo-hyuk, what was left was the mind, his internal energy, and nothing took longer than cultivating it. The minimum requirement to reach the transcendent level was 60 years of inner power, and building it the normal way would take another 5 years. Soo-hyuk wondered how he could wait 5 years unless he had something big like Shaolin's spirit elixir. Thinking about that item gave him an idea. He believed it could work. Soo-hyuk went to the station. It had been a long time since he was there. This building was known as Cosmo Sales, a market that sold products from other dimensions besides Earth. Finding a great spirit elixir from Earth was almost impossible, but if it came from another dimension, it was a different story. Mana potions could quickly restore a portion of a person's energy, so he can guarantee at least 30 years of internal energy. Soo-hyuk walked through the building. The first floor was as shocking as ever. He had recently bought an tea there, and its high price was because it was built by dwarves. Soo-hyuk took the escalator to the 3rd floor. On one side, a vendor was yelling, selling dragon skin. On the other, someone was offering all kinds of transformation stones. Soo-hyuk refused all the offerers as none of them interested him. The area was full of street vendors, and all he wanted was to know where they sold medicine. He noticed someone with very cute small, pointed ears, and then a cat-like tail. A cat-like beastman was leaning against the wall. His face turned red when he realized it was a beastman. It was rare to see non-humans there, and even so, people didn't seem to notice, so Soo-hyuk decided to go see. His approach was immediately noticed. That's how he discovered the creature was trying to hide its presence. The beastman smiled, curious about how her presence had been felt. Soo-hyuk discovered it was a stealth skill. The cat girl called him, and said what he was looking for was right here. That surprised the former emperor, as he hadn't said anything, and he wanted to understand how she knew what he wanted. The beastman took out the mana potion, which shocked Soo-hyuk quite a bit. She said that among her people, she had the best eyesight, as a mage, and said it was even stranger that the boy had found her first. Still impressed, Soo-hyuk asked the price of the item. The cat girl said it cost 300 million won. He yelled that it was too expensive. The beastman said it was a high-end product made by her own hands, guaranteeing its effectiveness. After all, she rarely made them. She wished him luck as this was the last one. Soo-hyuk asked if her eyesight allowed her to read minds, and she said she didn't try to, but she could understand him, and for some reason, she could tell his position was higher than it seemed. So, the former emperor realized that maybe she could see his past lives. And from what he knew, only dark prophets could do that. Finally, Soo-hyuk agreed to pay 300 million and trusted her. The beastman said he was very cute, and his voice was trembling. That made the former emperor blush even more. He said it had nothing to do with it, but this felt strange. Then, he asked if he could touch her fur. The cat girl asked if he was a pervert, but he tried to defend himself, saying it just looked soft. She asked him if he should at least introduce himself before making such a request. She then introduced herself as Nay. Soo-hyuk also told her his name. Nay said humans always had such strange names, but anyway, she would remember his name. She asked if he was trying to touch something strange, and the former emperor denied it. However, the cat girl offered the handshake. Soo-hyuk asked if that meant they were becoming friends, and she agreed, saying she didn't make friends with just anyone. He could feel how soft her fur was. Nay stared at him creepily. The former emperor defended himself, saying he just liked soft, fluffy things. Soo-hyuk had returned home. Laying on his bed, he thought about how amazing beastmen were, about their unique appearance and the feeling of their fur that he couldn't forget, and thought that when he moved out, he should get a cat. Meanwhile, Soo-hyuk observed the scary scene. It was time to find out if it really worked. In his hand, a 300 million won potion. Normally, this type was an emergency item for mages or people with supernatural abilities, helping them recover energy when they were exhausted. It was expensive for a single use, but there was nothing better for strengthening internal energy. Soo-hyuk hoped everything would go well. After drinking the potion, he quickly felt the energy flowing through his body. The spirit elixir was real, unlike the cheap fakes. Soo-hyuk hoped to absorb it all without wasting a single drop. His skills leveled up along with the martial arts upgrade. He could evolve to an even higher level. The purification reached 100, and his internal energy doubled. The art of heavenly unity technique had a great synergy with a purified body. As for bone regeneration, it was progressing at 1-2. If Soo-hyuk accumulated 3 more years of internal energy, he would soon reach his goal of the transcendent level. The martial god was at level 30. Reaching 100 purification had opened up new possibilities. A body with a perfect flow of energy was what every martial artist dreamed of on the continent of Juan. Reaching this level was enough to be considered a superman in itself. He couldn't even do that. Soo-hyuk wanted to know the second requirement to complete the bone regeneration. He was shocked by what it required. Strength, stamina, and agility all had to exceed 200. To achieve that through leveling up, he he would need to be at least level 180. Soo Hyuk knew that focusing on that would take forever, but at least he could train. However, he needed to take it one step at a time. And so 15 days passed. Soo Hyuk drove his in a hurry. After all, the promised day was approaching. Through the art of heavenly unity, his internal energy had increased by 2 years. Finally, it was time to prove his worth in the Tranan dimension. The gate was in an area controlled by the military. As soon as he approached, he was asked to stop and identify himself. The soldier asked if he was a hunter, so Soo Hyuk showed him his ID. He was allowed to enter, and before that, he needed to register his license. Someone behind the former emperor called him. The man was the assistant of Vice President Kim Yong-soo, who was there to guide him. He then asked Soo Hyuk to go with him. The gate looked stronger than the others, larger with an even more intense light. Yong-soo warned him that someone was inside waiting to help him. Soo Hyuk found it strange, but the assistant explained it was because he would be using new equipment. The former emperor remembered they had said it would come from Elvenheim, and if there were elves, he considered the possibility that it was Shehar. Anyway, he was ready for it. Soo Hyuk entered the huge gate. The place was being cleared. Soo Hyuk entered the other dimension. Finally seeing what this place was like, he soon realized the atmosphere here was different. Soo Hyuk remembered his assistant was waiting for him on the 3rd floor of the inn. Looking at the people around, he wondered if all the awakened had gone hunting yet. Anyway, he drove his ad. He arrived at what he believed was the assistant's inn. After parking, he went inside, and that's when he discovered why everything was so empty, as many people were inside. Someone called him, asking if he was going alone. The man explained the 1st floor was packed and reminded him that the 2nd floor was too, even though it was more expensive. Soo Hyuk just said he wanted to go to the 3rd floor, which startled the man as he explained that besides requiring a reservation, it was more expensive. He said the place had private rooms with magical soundproofing mostly used by VIPs and important figures. The waiter said that a reservation was mandatory and he would have to check the schedule. So, Soo Hyuk explained he had company. That impressed the guy, and he said Soo Hyuk should have said that sooner. So, he asked Soo Hyuk to follow him and asked for his name. The receptionist looked up the former emperor's name. Hyun Ji-won was his guide and said that his companion had arrived not long ago, asking him to follow. Soo Hyuk was impressed that there was a staff member dedicated only to guests on the 3rd floor. He was impressed by how different this place was from the 1st floor. It was definitely capitalism at work. Ji-won showed him room 328, and kindly explained that if he needed anything, he just had to press a button, but all Soo Hyuk could focus on was the person sitting there waiting for him. His assistant had not yet appeared. The scent was familiar, and he thought it was Shehar. But the elf introduced herself as Serenial, the 2nd disciple of Kalalari, the 1st finger. Calling him a warrior, she said she had heard a lot about him, and it was an honor to meet him. The introduction left Soo Hyuk speechless. Noticing the awkwardness, the elf apologized for the way she spoke, explaining that she wasn't good at communicating with others. But the former emperor tried to say it wasn't like that, and then suggested she sit. The room was completely private as the guide had said. They were sitting opposite each other with tea already served. Serenial explained that the drink was made from golden moon leaves grown by the Elaine clan. It was rare on Earth, and the elf had brought it for him as a special gift. That special product was more expensive than gold. That really made Soo Hyuk feel like a big shot. After tasting it, he said they should get straight to the point. The elf agreed, skipping the formalities. Soo Hyuk asked if she had a magic tool that detected cosmic energy, something he had heard about. Serenial searched for something in her clothes. She showed him the artifact, explaining that although it was a test model, it worked well with gates of rank 7 and below. The elf said they called it under the shadow of the world tree, but since humans had found it first, he could call it the shadow. Although there was a level limit, she said that problem would soon be solved. After all the explanation, Soo Hyuk asked her to activate it, because even if it was an island, finding it wouldn't be easy. Serenial then activated the scanner. The elf said a few words in another language while holding her hand over the IM. She was really focused on it. With more words, the energy became stronger. Its rays spread to other areas. Something really surprised the former emperor. He looked at the map of the Tranan continent forming before him. Soo Hyuk could see a mountain mark, but he didn't know the geography of the area, so he couldn't figure out the exact location. Suddenly, something caught his attention. The elf didn't look well, and he asked if she was okay. Serenial replied that she was fine and just needed to rest a bit. She said the most important thing was that she had found the cosmic energy 300 km away and that there's a mountain range, and asked if he wanted to go right away, but Soo Hyuk wanted to go the next day. The elf said he shouldn't delay because he was worried about her, but the former emperor said they couldn't go because he was tired. Serenial just remained silent. Then, Suhyuk said they would go very soon, and before he left, the elf asked him to wait. She explained that this was his room. The elf stood up, saying her room was next door, and said goodbye. Not long after, the first rays of sun appeared, shining into the room through the window and brightening the room. Suhyuk had been awake for a while. He noticed someone approaching. The former emperor opened the door to greet Serenial and asked if she was feeling okay. She confirmed and thanked him for his concern. So, Suhyuk was happy to hear that, asking if they could go now. Serenial was ready. The two went to the vehicle. Suhyuk thought it was a bit cramped for two people. He asked if it was okay for her to sit behind him, and the elf asked what he meant. A bit awkwardly, he explained that she should hold on so she wouldn't fall. Suhyuk revved up his zip, and just like that, the two set off on their mission. Passing through the almost deserted city, someone asked if the two of them had left. Ji-won confirmed he had seen it with his own eyes. The bald guy said he would be paid when this was over, but Ji-won reminded him the deal was to be paid first. But the man said if an elf was involved, it was worth an extra 1 billion won. The guy tried again to say that wasn't the deal, which made the big guy tell him to shut up. With a smile, the bald guy asked if he hadn't said he kept his promises. Frightened, Ji-won explained that wasn't what he meant. The bald guy told him not to throw away his life for stubbornness, but Ji-won was angry that the guy had taken his information and left, trying to see if things would go his way. Meanwhile, on the deserted road, the duo followed the treasure path on the app. Serenial led the way. Straight for 17 gim, turn right, and continue for 20 gim. Suhyuk noticed some strange movements. Angry monsters were coming to attack them. Ahead were giant rats. Serenial used no magic, clearing a path for them through the monsters. The creatures were also hit. She used a water spirit, making a creature appear. The rats were attacked by the element. Suhyuk wondered if she was summoning spirits and wanted to know what the elf's power was. An even bigger rat appeared. Things just got worse for them. He tried to dodge the monster. Once again, the elf summoned no magic, making a small earth spirit appear, but the big rat pushed it back. Serenial was surprised that it had broken her barrier so quickly. Suhyuk, with energy running through his body, said he would handle it. The monster screamed when it realized he was charging straight at it and he was ready to punch it. Suhyuk hit with wind fist, blowing a large hole through the monster. The creature fell to the ground. Suhyuk was angry and asked how it dared to try to take his 800 million. The elf, though, was impressed to see a wind spirit, which was impossible for a human. But the awakened explained it wasn't real, that he was just gathering air with his energy and shooting it forward. Even so, she was impressed because he had just talked about ki blasts, which required serious skill, and he used it like it was nothing. The elf knew he was getting stronger, and now she understood why her master valued him so much. Suhyuk realized something was wrong. A fireball flew towards them, hitting the ground with an explosion. The former emperor had been faster and had saved both of them. Suhyuk asked Serenial if she was okay and was still a bit confused about what had just happened. She said yes and thanked him. Several cars were heading towards them. The elf asked if the former emperor knew them, but he was about to ask the same thing. Suhyuk noticed the vehicles had a magical defensive barrier, which meant a direct attack was not a good idea. He asked the elf if she could drive, and luckily, she had a special driver's license. Suhyuk asked how much experience she had, and she didn't really understand. She said about 3 years, so Suhyuk took the wheel of the ad. He also checked if she could get past the two cars. With her confirmation, the awakened told her to speed up. The cars were about to meet. One of the enemies held an item. He was sure they were charging straight to their deaths, so the thug threw the stone. It hit the ground and broke into many pieces. The other enemy used his skill, a kind of sand farm. Serenial told him to hold on tight. She made a quick swerve, escaping both traps. Suhyuk smiled at the good coordination. He then jumped straight onto the car, which panicked the thugs when they realized something was on the roof. Suhyuk grabbed a part of the car, using energy for extra strength. The bald guy, seeing this, thought he was crazy and wanted to die. Suhyuk continued trying to rip off the roof, but the bald guy said he was a fool for trying to break it as it was reinforced steel forged by dwarves. With all his effort, Suhyuk did it, which shocked his enemies. He then told the thugs to attack the former emperor. One of them volunteered to handle it, shooting a fireball at Suhyuk, and the former emperor used the roof as a shield, the material withstanding the heat of the fireballs. When the attack was over, he threw the item aside. Soo-hyuk grabbed one of the passengers in the car, which panicked the bald guy. But that wasn't the only thing he had to worry about. They were heading straight for a giant rock barrier. Then, the car crashed. Serenial smiled faintly at a job well done. The bald guy was horrified that they had lost so easily, but he wouldn't let that happen. The big guy then jumped out of the car. When he landed, his legs were like stone. With his transformation, he promised to finish off the skinny bastard. His size was terrifying. Soo-hyuk smiled. After all, it had been a long time since his last fight with a shapeshifter. The stone giant charged at him. Soo-hyuk dodged to avoid being crushed. Keeping a safe distance from the creature, the former emperor noticed his body was too hard. Serenial turned back because she knew the stone guy was stronger than he looked. Soo-hyuk thought the enemy was rank 10. Realizing it would be reckless to face him head-on. Suddenly, he noticed something scary. The stone guy had disappeared. They looked back, feeling something emerging from underground. Then, the big guy took them by surprise with a sneak attack. The two of them jumped up before being crushed. But his 800 million wife wasn't so lucky. He had saved his life with that jump. Even so, he was really angry because his entire fortune had been destroyed. So, he asked the elf to back off for a moment. Soo-hyuk was going to turn him back into a human. He then jumped, moving so fast, straight towards the stone guy. Soo-hyuk threw a kick, but ended up kicking the air. The stone guy was no longer there. He was too fast for Soo-hyuk to realize. The enemy emerged from underground, trying another surprise attack, but the former emperor managed to block it in time. Soo-hyuk didn't know when he had gotten behind him. At least he knew the enemy was digging through the ground like a mole to attack. Soo-hyuk thought he could use a dual skill like Park Mu-ji. While attacking the big guy, he taunted him, saying he dodged like a mouse. The former emperor stopped a few meters away from him. Soo-hyuk needed to break that hard skin first, and there was only one way. He charged straight into the attack. The former emperor figured, if the outside was too hard, he had to destroy the inside with his internal destruction technique. But the big guy surprised him and asked if he really thought he was the only one who knew how to destroy something from the inside. Soo-hyuk was put in a difficult situation. Then, the stone guy attacked. Worried by what she was seeing, Serenial yelled for the warrior. With a wicked smile, the stone guy said it was her turn. He said he would love to take her somewhere for some private time, but he wasn't a patient person. The elf was determined to take down this monster and save the warrior, and there was only one way to do it. Serenial would ask for the help of the spirits. The stone guy told her not to worry as he would send her straight to her friend. He attacked the elf. Dust flew up, creating a screen. Nothing happened to Serenial from the attack. Gradually, she began to understand what had happened. In front of her was Soo-hyuk, blocking the blow. The stone guy looked quite shocked, and Soo-hyuk didn't miss the chance to taunt him, asking if he had ever heard of this. That softness wins over hardness, and a flexible approach can defeat brute force. Soo-hyuk figured he had been careless before because he had never imagined a strange octopus like him would be so strong. The former emperor also said that considering his strength, he was ranked 12, which angered the enemy. Then, the stone guy tried to attack him, but for some reason it didn't work. He couldn't even move. And Soo-hyuk said if he had fought him at least 2 weeks ago, maybe things would have been different, but this time it was different. Soo-hyuk asked if he knew that all spaces in the world have lines and they are not infinite. He said they bend, break, and then connect again, and asked if he knew what the space between those lines was called. Then, Soo-hyuk answered that they were called cracks. Then, the former emperor touched a point. He said even the hardest rock that has stood for over 1,000 years will break if the cracks are weak. And then, the stone guy started to crack. So, Soo-hyuk promised that his days as an awakened ended right here. The crack grew larger. And, the man fell to the ground. He couldn't believe what was happening to his body. Horrified, he wondered if his power was really gone forever. The man begged to have it back. And with that, the rampage of Li Wujin and his gang came to an end. With their abilities eliminated, they were nothing, just pathetic, useless criminals. There was a mark on the bald guy's arm. Through interrogation, they learned something else. They were members of Magnus, a notorious international criminal guild. Most of them weren't even registered with the Awakened Association. That was because Magnus had secretly created awakened individuals or even stolen them from the association and erased their records. Soo-hyuk knew that kind of activity would be impossible without an insider, so he needed to talk to Shin Woo about it. The criminals were put into the car one by one. Soo-hyuk thought they would have a hard time in the next few days, but he didn't care. He wondered if this kind of thing would bother Serenial. The elf just asked them to leave. Soo-hyuk asked if it was to the trapped mountain, and she confirmed, saying they still needed to find the cosmic energy. He agreed, but there was still a problem in the back of the car. With a deadly look, Serenial said a group of criminals like this deserved to suffer, which horrified them quite a bit. Really, Serenial said he would continue as planned. So, they set off on their mission with the gang heading towards the mountain to search for the cosmic energy. Back at the inn, the first floor was as crowded as ever. Then, someone entered. Andrew and his henchmen caught everyone's attention. He said the rumors were true that the person he was looking for was in this dimension and asked how he could track him. Everyone was scared. After all, one of the octad was there. Andrew smiled and told them to relax. He and his henchmen went up the stairs towards the most luxurious floor. Suddenly, someone called him. It was Ji-won, saying he had something very important to tell him. Andrew looked at him and said humans were really fascinating, and that emotions alone could replace control and make people act. The guide was confused by what he said. Then, the blonde guy said it was nothing and he just wanted to know what he had to say to him. Ji-won revealed that the man he was looking for had left earlier with an elf and the Magnus Guild had gone after them. He also praised the elf's beauty, and told Lord Vladimir that he would also like her. Andrew became pensive at his words, which made Ji-won think he would accept it. Plus, the guide was feeling like today was amazing as he had never imagined he would talk to someone from the Octad. Then, Andrew's answer came like a knife. The blonde guy just lamented that he had almost dirtied his white suit. He was just curious to see how far Ji-won's greed would go, but in the end, he was just a piece of trash tied to Magnus. Andrew asked someone to clean up the mess immediately. Meanwhile, on top of Black Fang Peak, it had been a full week of searching for the cosmic energy. Soo-hyuk had defeated many monsters to get there, but there was still no sign, until he noticed something was wrong with a drop of water. He looked up and saw something terrifying. On the ceiling was a giant bat. The creature noticed their presence. It flew towards the two of them. Then, it let out a supersonic scream. Serenial was affected by the sound, but things got better when Soo-hyuk put his hands on her ears. He asked the elf to stand still, explaining that the barrier would block the sound wave attacks for a while. The giant bat was angry and attacked. Serenial realized the cosmic energy was radiating from the monster. Soo-hyuk knew this was the boss, and wondered if that thing was called a fire bat. He knew a wind fist wouldn't be enough. In that case, there was still one thing he could do. The awakened shot at the bat with continuous wind fist. It was like many circles of light, but the boss countered with a fiery scream. Soo-hyuk dodged before he was turned into a skewer. That's when he realized the bat was powering up, so he would have to push past his limits. Soo-hyuk ran towards the monster, ready to use continuous wind fist. The bat screamed as it attacked. Then, Soo-hyuk hit, injuring the creature with his power. Serenial watched the battle, impressed, as the giant bat fell at his feet. Soo-hyuk looked at the creature, and said that without wings, it was nothing special. He still had a job to finish. Finally defeating the fire bat. With the mission over, his level increased. Even after using many wind fist attacks, his internal energy was still full because the recovery speed was insane. Although low, it was basically like infinite. His eyes lit up at what he saw. He searched the fire bat's body. Soo-hyuk picked up a giant crystal and asked if it was the cosmic energy. Serenial, who was nearby, confirmed the item retrieval was complete. The former emperor wanted to destroy it and close the gate. But first, he had to contact the association to get the awakened out of there. Serenial also found a mana stone dropped by the bat. They had defeated about 1,000 monsters on the Black Fang range, most of them low-level rodents, but mana stones were a different story. Just last week, Soo-hyuk had received 11 6-star ones. Serenial said it was no surprise it looked special as those mana stones were very powerful, and you could get a 7-star gem with them, which was great for Soo-hyuk as it could be sold for 160 million, and they already had 11 collected from monsters plus a potential 7-star one. Adding it all up, it was over 2.8 billion won. And even after taxes, there was still enough for him to buy another at. Serenial shocked him by saying she wouldn't take her share as the elves didn't need earth money, just a few powers. She gave him the stone, and said that anyway, he had defeated more monsters. However, Soo-hyuk didn't think it was right not to share. And the elf said if it really bothered him, he should visit Elvenheim someday. Serenial also said that if he really did that, he could teach her a little martial arts. She said she wasn't as good at fighting as her master. And the former emperor said she was a mage, and he found out Shahar was one too. The elf said she couldn't explain, but she noticed a difference between his martial arts and her master's, and that she didn't have much talent for it. She said she didn't want to be a burden on the battlefield. With a slight smile, Soo-hyuk said that when the time came, he would drop by, but right now they needed to go back. The trip was made by car, driving on the empty road with the headlights illuminating the night. Soon, the meeting point appeared. Serenial was looking out the window. Then, she surprised the warrior by saying he could drop her off there. Soo-hyuk didn't seem happy that it was time for them to part, but even so, he followed the elf's request. Serenial thanked him for completing his mission safely. Soo-hyuk also thanked her, saying that things had become much calmer for him, and hoped they would meet again someday. The elf asked if he hadn't promised to visit Elvenheim, and he confirmed. She then said that even if it wasn't by chance, they would meet again, and they hoped the meeting would be under better circumstances. Once again, Soo-hyuk said goodbye to his mission partner. She then said he could call her real, which was when they met next time. The guy was finally speechless, but he eventually agreed to her small request. Meanwhile, the henchman couldn't stand being the third wheel for the two of them anymore, so the duo's mission was officially over. Soo-hyuk took his mask. He thought it was time to finally use it. The former emperor remembered Shin-woo telling him that a hero needed a little showmanship. He then put on the mask and hit the gas, ready to put on a little show. The exit from this dimension was right ahead. He then went through the gate with the Magnus Guild, quickly to the other side, finally returning to Earth. Ahead, a crowd of people was waiting for him. Having to brake hard, the henchmen were thrown from side to side, and people were curious to know more. They surrounded the car. As soon as he got out of the car, Soo-hyuk brought out the energy for everyone to see, which impressed people when they knew it was from the Tranan dimension, but they still didn't know who had done it. Then, Nameless appeared before everyone. People said that by taking the cosmic energy first, the hero had defeated Vladimir, but there were still doubts about whether this was really true. Kim Yong-soo thanked the hero for what he had done, and asked him to wait a moment while they verified the item. Using a machine, they confirmed the cosmic energy was real. The assistant was happy with the good work. There was no way to doubt it anymore. Then, Kim Yong-soo celebrated that Nameless had recovered the cosmic energy from the Tranan dimension, which left people completely shocked by what they were hearing. But then they started shouting the hero's name. Still at the scene, the Blood Prince received the news of Yang Soo-hyuk's departure. Surprised, Andrew asked if the boy hadn't entered the dimension recently. He smiled faintly, but he was consumed by rage for being surpassed, having to admit that Nameless was really good. He was also angry with Shin-woo. Andrew then announced they would go back as there was no reason to stay anymore. The blondie guy, as always, was accompanied by his two henchmen. Andrew noticed people's gazes. They thought the blonde guy was nothing special. He had been surpassed by Nameless. But Vladimir thought they were pathetic for having no abilities, just relying on others' success to feel superior. He wasn't there just to clear the dimension. Andrew thought that for someone with such great influence, Baekmuga could be quite dangerous for him. Things just got more interesting. Meanwhile, Magnus's henchmen were arrested. Young-soo told them to hurry up before the reporters surrounded the place. The vice president finally arrived. Young-soo asked him to go with him. Shin-woo opened the tent, seeing Soo-hyuk waiting there. With a bright smile, the red-haired guy said he heard he had put on a great show. The hero said a little showmanship wouldn't hurt. Shin-woo asked if he liked it, but Soo-hyuk just thought he really didn't mind being on the sidelines. Anyway, the vice president also congratulated him on a job well done, and said the association would handle the rest. The former emperor then mentioned Mangas. Shin-woo laughed sheepishly. That's when Soo-hyuk realized he already knew. After all, they were an international criminal organization. Laughing a little nervously, the vice president asked him not to look at him like that as it sometimes felt like the hero could punch him at any moment. He then apologized, and admitted he had known about the Korean branch of Magnus for a long time. Shin-woo said that unlike the others, they hadn't done anything big, but that wasn't what the former emperor wanted to hear. The vice president said they received orders from higher-ups that they should keep quiet about it because the name Magnus carried weight, and if things were revealed, the bosses would have problems. He also revealed that just saying this had put his job and perhaps his life in danger. Soo-hyuk asked if the higher-ups he meant was the association's president, but he couldn't say. However, the former emperor tried again, asking if it was someone even higher. Shin-woo warned that he could lose his position because of this, as there were complex political factors involved. He apologized, saying he could have kept the hero out of this and promised it wouldn't happen again. The red-haired guy didn't want to put him in that position, and Soo-hyuk decided to trust him for now. Shin-woo wanted to ask something after hearing that Liu Jin and the rest of the members couldn't use their powers. He asked if it was the hero's doing. So, without being around the bush, Soo-hyuk just confirmed it. Impressed, The red-haired guy asked if it was really possible, but he promised not to spread it, although people would probably know soon as it wasn't the kind of thing they wanted to attract attention to right now. Soo-hyuk just agreed with his decision. Changing the mood, Shin-woo said his rank would be revealed the next day along with the money that would be in his account. Soo-hyuk was also reminded of losing his 800 million won. The red-haired guy said the SUV Magnus that he used would be repaired, registered by the association, and given to him. Although it had been used by criminals, it was probably more expensive than his at. Plus, it was resistant to magical attacks and other things. Soo-hyuk figured the base price was at least 2 billion won or more, and the offer was really good for him. Shin-woo noticed that really made the hero happy, and the former emperor confirmed it. Losing the yet he had left a hole in his soul. With a lot of excitement, he accepted. Shin-woo said it was a gift for a national hero, and it was the least they could do. He then said he would call him when the repairs were complete. Soo-hyuk was at the bus stop. What he needed had appeared. It had been a long time since he had taken a bus. Although he had lost it in the Tranan dimension, he couldn't say he felt bad about it. The results were so good that he felt like he was walking on clouds. While his parents were surprised that he had returned early from his trip, his sister just kept her eyes on the food. Nights like these reminded Soo-hyuk that happiness wasn't too far away. Finally, the next day arrived. Light flooded the room through the window. Soo-hyuk was woken up by his phone. He wondered who would be texting him so early. He then discovered it was a deposit notification to his account. The guy screamed when he saw he had received 6 billion won. Soo-hyuk Dal, long live Korea. So happy about what he had just seen. He really didn't expect this. On top of that, the association had covered the car expenses, and now he would finally have time to use it with his family. This was all he needed. But in the midst of his celebration, Soo-hyuk noticed he had a message. It was Shin-woo saying the ranking process was complete. Soo-hyuk quickly replied that he was on his way. Currently, he was rank 8, and was waiting for a 2-level jump. Almost reaching gold. The awakened stretched, ready for the day. Meanwhile, Shin-woo was giving an interview saying, Nameless single-handedly entered the Tranan dimension. Thanks to that mission, his name had spread throughout the media. People couldn't stop talking about it, even starting a fan club for the hero, and he wondered if that was what Shin-woo wanted. Soo-hyuk arrived at the association building. The red-haired guy gave him a ring. He said only 5 people in Korea had used this item. Soo-hyuk had heard about it, but seeing it in person was quite impressive. Shin-woo said the ring was made of mithril, and although it was smaller than the bracelet, it was more complex and advanced. He added that they only gave this item to people of rank 12 or higher, and Soo-hyuk wanted to understand why he was being given it. Then, the red-haired guy congratulated him on being ranked 13, which only Baek Mudak had achieved, and he was officially recognized as the 7th awakened. Hearing that left Soo-hyuk completely shocked, something unprecedented in history, and Shin-woo believed he could still level up even more. Being in the top 10 guaranteed privileges, being treated as a national asset with equivalent treatment and benefits. The association would also provide a personal secretary, a driver, and a luxury sedan. Soo-hyuk didn't need the car, so he thought about giving it to his father. On top of that, there were lower loan interest rates and government housing support for under 500 million won. But what made his heart race was that there was no way he had to pay his entire amount in taxes. Shin-woo said he looked forward to working with him. And Soo-hyuk felt the same way. You could hear his sister's voice outside. Soo-ra was surprised that he had jumped from rank 7 straight to 12. The former emperor confirmed it was true, and she was impressed with her brother. She asked what she should do as she wanted to brag about him, and Soo-hyuk told her she could do whatever she wanted, but he wanted her to tell their parents first. Soo-ra asked if she could be the one to tell them, which made her brother think. Soo-hyuk told her she shouldn't, as it would shock the 2 older people. The girl asked if it was time to tell their parents. She suggested telling their mother now, as it would be easier with their father. Soo-hyuk thought it was a good idea. Anyway, he had been waiting for the right time. He had reached the gold rank, so he knew it was fair to tell their parents. Although he was worried, and he followed his sister's advice that it would be easier with their mother. Meditating, his internal energy had reached a threshold, and without rushing, he would tell them when the time was right. He had unlocked the compound interest tree, increasing his internal energy from the art of heavenly unity. Normally, the absorption efficiency of this technique was below average, but thanks to his relentless practice, he had surpassed others. Even if there were better techniques, none could match the long-term returns of compound growth. Soo-hyuk was glad he had focused on mastering one thing instead of jumping around. Finally, he could say he could use real martial arts. but he had no intention of stopping. After all, the human body is like forged steel, very thin, easily damaged. However, a moderate amount of pressure only makes it stronger. People say there is a limit, but there are no fixed walls. Someone stopped in front of him. Soo-hyuk asked him to identify himself. It was Andrew Vladimir, who said it was wonderful to finally meet him. The former emperor realized that although he looked human, and he said he didn't think such monsters still existed in this world, Andrew smiled, saying it had been a long time since he had been called that, a powerful being with supernatural strength. He said it was rare for someone to recognize him, especially a human and not a Taoist or a mage. The blonde guy was surprised in the middle of speaking. Soo-hyuk tried to hit him, but he dodged in time, but the former emperor didn't stop. Andrew was surprised that he had recognized him as he always used a mental spell first. He asked the former emperor to calm down, but Soo-hyuk said he hadn't even started and said for someone from the Octet, complaining was not appropriate. Andrew was surprised that he knew about him. The former emperor had no time to talk. He grabbed the blonde guy's shirt with a muscle technique. Then, he slammed him to the ground. Andrew spat out red liquid from the impact of the blow. He was impressed by what was happening. This had become impressive for him. The Blood Prince was just trying to tease him, but Soo-hyuk had really angered him. Andrew trapped him in a magic circle. A red mist rose towards the former emperor. Now it was his turn to want to understand what was happening. The blonde guy warned that no matter how wild he was, he wouldn't be able to block this. Soo-hyuk felt his body being filled with this strange energy. Something was happening to him. His karma and core spiritual level were much higher than his target. So, everything balanced out. The spiritual resistance skill was activated. The system was fighting against the opponent's magic. Increased to B rank. Soo-hyuk's energy enveloped his entire body. In the system window, it showed he had completely resisted the opponent's magic. Andrew couldn't believe what had just happened. Soo-hyuk then punched him, slamming the monster to the ground. Andrew was shocked that a human had resisted his spiritual magic. Soo-hyuk was ready to shut him up, but the Blood Prince used a defense. Even so, he was impressed that a human had made him bleed. That made him really angry. The villain then stood up with evil energy around his body. Now he would show his true power. He charged straight at the former emperor, but Soo-hyuk just smiled confidently and Andrew's attacks were blocked, which impressed the Blood Prince. Soo-hyuk shone even brighter. Switching to the attack, he asked his opponent if he was done as it was now his turn to fight back. Everything went dark for Andrew. Gradually, he could see Soo-hyuk. The former emperor said he had finally woken up. Soo-hyuk mocked him, saying it was pathetic to fall just for that, and asked if that was what the Octet valued. And Andrew said he couldn't believe he was hearing that from an ordinary human. Then, the former emperor, considering his strength, asked if he was some kind of vampire. The blondie guy just smiled without answering. Andrew looked around, realizing they were in some kind of parking lot. And Soo-hyuk confirmed there was nowhere else to throw him. However, the vampire said he was in a sad state. He looked at himself in the mirror and complained, saying he had never thought he would be beaten in such a small country, and Andrew was curious to know what he was, but Soo-hyuk reminded him the vampire had asked first. The blonde guy asked if just looking wasn't obvious enough. Soo-hyuk said the world had gone to hell if a leech like him was the world's last hope. Andrew said his words were harsh. After all, he really liked humans. But the former emperor thought it was strange coming from someone who drank blood like a mosquito. The vampire said at least he didn't eat people. Soo-hyuk said even so, he still left people to wither. Andrew said although he was a vampire, Soo-hyuk was the one who scared him. The former emperor said he didn't seem scared. And the vampire revealed the reason was that this was not his real body. That surprised Soo-hyuk, and Andrew asked if he really thought the true Lord of the Night, the primordial ancestor, would bring his real body to a strange and dangerous land like this. He said he hadn't done anything too bad to humans because nowadays you can't just drink blood, because they would panic. The vampire told him to believe what he was saying, because it wasn't like the former emperor would lose anything by doing so. But all Soo-hyuk could think was that this was not his real body, so he understood why his physical strength was lower than his magic. He had also tried to cut the energy cord, while the vampire was unconscious to restrain his power, but it didn't work. Enter interrupted his thoughts. The Blood Prince said he had answered his doubts, and now he wanted the Awakened to answer his question. After all, although he wasn't a mage, the guy had recognized him, and resisted his spiritual magic, so he wanted to know what he was. The night in the city was quiet, and Enter ran after Soo-hyuk, wanting him to kindly answer his question as a fair exchange. But the Awakened said he was not in the mood to share anything about himself with a vampire who had tried to take him down first. Lord Vladimir said he didn't want them to be enemies. For Soo-hyuk, it was a pity it was a clone, because he couldn't cut his energy properly. He also knew the vampire was very strong, and if it had been his real body, things might have been different. Just like that, Soo-hyuk regretted being proud of reaching the highest realm when in fact, he was still far from the P. To do that, there was only one path. To become so strong that no one could threaten him. By reaching the ultimate realm of the stage's harmony, he wouldn't have to worry about pests like vampires. After all, greater power brings greater freedom. Soo-hyuk understood that he needed to get stronger, and was still there, asking him to wait so they could go together. People were walking calmly on the street. Meanwhile, the vampire followed him, saying there was no reason for them to be enemies. Ender said he liked him, and respected the arrogance of a worthy person. Thinking it was really cool, he said Soo-hyuk was different from the other Asians he had met, because there was something about him that was unique, which annoyed the awakened. Lord Vladimir was recognized, causing a commotion, and they even recorded the two of them. He couldn't escape his fame and dragged Soo-hyuk into it. Andrew tried again to establish a friendship between them. And with no more patience, the awakened threatened to wipe him out if he took one more step. The vampire said he had no other choice, as it was the only way to talk to him. While people commented on the strangeness of them getting close, Soo-hyuk didn't seem very happy about someone whispering that he was Vladimir's type. Besides the men talking about it, there were many cameras filming him, but there wasn't much he could do. He asked the vampire what he wanted. Vladimir said he just wanted to talk, and asked if he was curious to know how he was found. Soo-hyuk suggested they go somewhere else as he hated the noise. He knew that if they stayed there, people would continue to watch them. So, Soo-hyuk intended to run first and asked the vampire to follow him. Finally, a quiet place away from the flashes, and Ander asked if people had stopped following them, and the awakened believed so. Then, Soo-hyuk noticed something. There was a small group there. Laughing, the vampire said it was just a bunch of thugs. One of the boys asked if they had never seen students and told them to mind their own business. The blonde girl noticed how handsome the two of them were. In the middle of the conversation, she asked if they were actors because one of them looked familiar. Andrew said they were just kids, and they should ignore them as they had more important things to talk about. The two intended to leave, which annoyed one of the boys. They sighed tiredly, which made the kid even angrier. Then, it charged at them. Soo-hyuk blocked it with just one hand, surprising it with his strength. Then, it was thrown against a wall, which horrified the girls at the sight. All the boys were easily subdued, and one of them asked them to call the police. Andrew just mocked them, saying, "Kids these days don't know who they're messing with." Finally, one of them recognized him. The vampire then asked the kid if it had finally realized that everything it was doing didn't matter anymore, leaving the group of thugs quite scared. They apologized as they hurried to leave the place. Andrew asked if that made them friends, but Soo-hyuk didn't agree, and just wanted the vampire to say what he wanted, and leave. Lord Vladimir promised to limit it to just 3 questions. First, he wanted to know how the awakened had eliminated his magic, but Soo-hyuk couldn't answer yet. The second question was if he was an origin, but the awakened asked what he meant. Ender said that on his record, it said he was a coma patient after the impact of the gate, but it was strange that his abilities were not just basic physical enhancements. He said Soo-hyuk was definitely not like the others. Then, the Lord of Darkness asked if he knew anything about mages. Soo-hyuk asked if he meant the awakened of that type. Ender said that was a mistake as they were not real mages. This was not widely known, but magic had existed on Earth even before the gates appeared, and there were also cultivators. Real mages did not get their power through awakening. They either became someone's disciple or formed a bond with a magic book, and that's how they learned real magic. Ender said such people were called purebloods or origins. Soo-hyuk wanted to clarify if instead of awakening, they were born with supernatural abilities, and he wanted to understand what caused it. The Lord of Darkness said that if he didn't know about those people, then it meant he wasn't one, so he asked him to forget it. Finally, he came to the last question. Lord Vladimir asked if he had ever thought about joining the Octet. Soo-hyuk asked if that group was the last line of defense for humanity, and the strongest, and wanted to know why they wanted him there. The blonde guy said they didn't offer contracts to everyone, but someone had to decide who was eligible. He asked Soo-hyuk if he knew where the group's name came from, then pointed to himself. The former emperor was surprised to find out the vampire himself had created the group. Lord Vladimir smiled at him, confirming it. Soo-hyuk thought it was a terrible idea that the last line of defense was created by a monster. So, Andrew reminded him again that he liked humans. Andrew said that after the gates opened, and Earth merged with other worlds, things had changed. He said weaker nations had suffered a lot. So, he started to establish connections and pursue proposals, and that's how the octet was created. However, Andrew revealed that he originally intended to recruit up to 10 people, but more people had rejected him than he expected. Soo Hyuk was surprised to learn the group was not at full strength.